Chapter 1829. Adolescent girls were more or less rebellious. If they weren't rebellious, it would be unscientific. The woman who spoke was called Wang Gonggong. Wang Gonggong didn't look very good. Her nose was a little flat, but her face was covered with thick makeup. She looked like a typical gangster. Wang Gonggong, Gong Yiba, and Ma Qinggong were all university students. However, they were in their fourth year and were obviously a few years older than Song Jiechi and the rest. Wang Gonggong was a typical gangster among the female students. She smoked, drank, and went out to play with men. She didn't go back to the dormitory during university curfew. She fell in love and acted like a lady in front of boys. Although Wang Gonggong was ugly and had a bad figure, there were always some boys who were willing to date her when she mingled in society. Wang Gonggong was a quiet girl, but she didn't give any face when she spoke. Of course, this silence was also an act. As long as she was in front of a handsome boy, she would immediately change her tune and act coquettishly. Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong weren't the boys Wang Gonggong liked, so she couldn't be bothered to pretend. Wang Gonggong said right away that Yun Jian had come to such a place alone because she had fallen out of love. Because a girl like her wouldn't think that Yun Jian was a capable person. Hey, what do you mean by that? Can't she come here alone to learn the profound martial arts of our country? Why do you make it sound like a girl can only come out alone when she's heartbroken? The first person who was unhappy with Wang Gonggong's words was Song Jiechi. Song Jiechi shouted at Wang Gonggong. Can't I say it? I think she came here alone because she's heartbroken. Wang Gonggong glared at Song Jiechi. Song Jiechi was so angry that she almost flipped the table. In the end, Song Jiehui calmed her down. If it weren't for Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong's good attitude, Song Jiechi and the rest wouldn't have followed Wang Gonggong. Yun Jian pursed her lips and ignored Wang Gonggong. 1.5 hours later, they set off from Yunling town and finally arrived at the foot of Yunling mountain. After another hour of climbing, they finally reached the top of the mountain. As soon as they reached the top, they saw a huge ancient building that looked like a temple. However, its architectural style was completely different from that of a temple. There was also a plaque hanging above the entrance. On the plaque, from right to left, there were 4 words written in ancient seal script: Heavenly Dao Huang Family. As soon as Yun Jian and the others walked through the gate, they saw a group of people shouting and practicing martial arts with an old man who looked like a cultivator immortal standing on the high steps. Every time he displayed a fist technique, a loud shout would come from his throat, ha! Hey! This was an orthodox martial arts family. Are you here to practice martial arts as well? Seeing that someone had entered the door, the old man jumped down from the stairs. After instructing the disciples around him to practice freely, he walked towards Yun Jian and the others. Yes. Song Jiechi and the others replied excitedly. Yun Jian didn't have the time to stay here and practice martial arts with them. She did not forget her purpose, which was to get the letter. Song Jiechi and the others looked at the old man excitedly and respectfully, trying to join the disciples who practiced martial arts. Yun Jian's words suddenly rang out in front of Song Jiechi, Song Jiehui, Wang Gonggong, and the others. She said to the old man. Chapter 1830. Yun Jian's words carried a certain authority, causing the elder to pause. Song Jiechi, Song Jiehui, Lin Xiang, and even Wang Gonggong were speechless. What Yulong continent, daughter of the Wu clan, sorcerer goddess? What the hell was this? Moreover, wasn't Yun Jian here to learn martial arts like them? Why did she ask the elder to meet the head of the Huang clan the moment she arrived? What daughter of the Wu clan? What is sorcerer goddess? Are you here to engage in crooked practices? Didn't you ask around before you came? The head of the Huang clan, Huang Bidian, isn't someone anyone can meet. Some people don't even get to meet the head of the Huang clan from the time they joined the clan to learn martial arts until they left. You're just a lovelorn girl with no power or influence. Why would the head of the Huang clan want to meet you? Even Wang Gonggong, who wasn't very satisfied with Yun Jian, was in awe of the Huang clan, which was ranked first among the martial arts clans. After hearing Yunjian's words, Wang Gonggang took the initiative to speak to Yunjian. His words sounded as if Yunjian had really come here because she was heartbroken and was here to cause trouble. Song Jiechi and the rest didn't say anything. The old man, who had been teaching a group of students who were also apprentices, was also surprised. Most of the apprentices who came to the Huang clan to learn martial arts were in awe when they spoke to the Huang clan. Not to mention Yunjian, who directly walked up and asked the head of the Huang clan to meet her. She was totally different. The old man had never seen such a clean and tidy little girl with a shoulder bag say such words the moment she came to his door. Obviously, the elder and the people around him didn't know about Yulong continent, much less the sorcerer clan. Of course, Yunjian said this because she knew that the head of the Huang clan, Huang Bitian, must know about the existence of Yulong continent. Putting aside how many times the head of the sorcerer clan, Wu Lan, had sent people to the Huang clan to collect letters, but to no avail. Just based on the fact that Huang Bitian had saved his master's life and left him a letter, his master must have told Huang Bitian a thing or two. However, the old man in front of her didn't know that. When he saw Yunjian open her mouth and ask to see the head of the Huang family, Huang Bitian, he was stunned for a moment, then quickly recovered. Is my Huang family's patriarch someone you can meet just because you want to? The old man immediately drooped his head with an unkind look on his face. Second uncle, what's wrong? Who made you unhappy? At this time, a young girl walked in through the door. She was about 16 or 17 years old and was quite pretty. After the young girl walked in, she circled around Yunjian and asked the old man. She wanted to see your father as soon as she came up the mountain. Of course I won't agree, the old man said to the young girl. His tone was completely different from when he spoke to Yunjian. His voice was much softer. Clearly, to the old man, Yunjian was purely here to cause trouble. The young girl who ran in was obviously the youngest daughter of the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Ling. You want to see my father? Why do you want to see my father? He's not fun. But if you want to see him, I can take you there. Huang Ling, still had a childlike innocence. She turned to look at Yunjian and said to Yunjian with a smile. Ling, don't get involved. This matter has nothing to do with you. The old man pushed Huang Ling away and continued to shout at Yunjian. If you're here to practice martial arts in my Huang family, then my Huang family welcomes you. But if you're here to cause trouble, then don't blame me, Huang Bihai, for ruthlessly driving you out of my Huang family. Before the old man, Huang Bihai, finished speaking, he suddenly saw 3 young girls in black coming in through the door. These 3 young girls in black were extremely beautiful. Their appearance was second only to Yunjian, but they attracted the attention of everyone present. When the old man, Huang Bihai, saw the 3 young girls in black, his expression changed. His elder brother, Huang Bitian, the patriarch of the Huang family, had once told him that these young girls in black came from a family in a mysterious region. The people there had the ability to destroy the world. So they must not be provoked. Therefore, when Huang Bihai was about to bow to the 3 young girls in black in front of everyone, a voice suddenly rang out. Just when everyone saw Huang Bihai being so respectful to the 3 young girls in black, their hearts were filled with endless questions. They saw Yunjian turn slightly to the side. Her eyes flashed sharply, showing her side profile to the 3 young girls in black. The 3 young girls in black, who made Huang Bihai so respectful, moved their eyes when they saw Yunjian. Then, in front of Song Jiechi, Song Jiehui, Lin Xiang, Wang Gonggang, and everyone else present, the 3 young girls in black knelt down to Yunjian directly. They bowed their heads respectfully and exclaimed. Chapter 1831. The 3 girls in black were from the sorcerer tribe of the Yulong continent. Yunjian blinked. Of course, she knew why the 3 girls were here. The sorcerer tribe leader Wulan had sent people from the sorcerer tribe to the Huang family for a few letters. However, no matter how tempting the sorcerer tribe was, the Huang family leader Huang Bitian did not waver. The 3 girls must have been sent by Wulan to ask for the letters again. They just happened to bump into her this time. The three of them quickly knelt down and bowed. She. Why are they kneeling to her? Wang Gonggong's eyes turned to Yun Jian without blinking. Her pupils constricted slightly. Wang Gonggong did not hate Yun Jian very much. She did not want Yun Jian to die either. What she said before sounded like she was targeting Yun Jian. However, Wang Gonggong had a habit of picking on people. Yun Jian, why are they kneeling to you? Wang Gonggong was not the only one surprised. Even Song Jiechi and Song Jiehui were shocked. Surprise flashed across everyone's faces. This is not the feudal society of the ancient times. Everyone is equal. Where is your dignity? Could it be that she threatened you? Get up. Wang Gonggong was a very mysterious person. When she was in a good mood, she was nice to everyone. When she was in a bad mood, she was not nice to anyone. Seeing the three girls in black kneeling in front of Yun Jian and bowing to Yun Jian with the etiquette of the Yulong continent, she could not take it anymore. Or maybe the three girls in black were too mysterious. People were all cheap. If someone acted like they did not want to talk to you and did not take you seriously, you would think that this person was good and want to get close to her. Wang Gonggong felt that the three black-clothed girls were quite mysterious, so he wanted to make friends with them and tried to pull them over. However, when Wang Gonggong reached out her hand, one of the three girls in black pushed her away and ignored Wang Gonggong. You don't have to kneel here. After Wang Gonggong was pushed away by one of the three black-clothed girls, Yun Jian's voice rang out. Hearing this, the three girls in black who had ignored Wang Gonggong immediately stood up and retreated to the side. This degree of obedience was in stark contrast to his action of pushing Wang Gonggong away. Wang Gonggong's face instantly darkened. Second uncle, look, this sister looks like a good person. I'll go call my dad. When Huang Linger saw this, she turned her head and winked at Huang Bihai. She then turned around and walked towards her father's residence. Huang Bihai simply couldn't stop this naughty girl. By the time he shouted, Huang Linger had already walked far away. After a while, Huang Linger brought over a man in his 50s. He was wearing a righteous martial arts uniform and had short hair. He was about to enter his old age. This person was the head of the Huang family, Huang Bidian. Dad, it's this sister. Huang Linger led Huang Bidian to Yun Jian. She leaned forward mischievously and stuck out her tongue at everyone. Then she pointed at Yun Jian. It was apparent that Huang Bidian had heard about Yun Jian from Huang Linger before he came. Coupled with the presence of the three witches, Huang Bidian had basically determined Yun Jian's identity. He looked at Yun Jian and frowned. You're the disciple of expert Bailey? The witch tribes. Which god? Bailey was a surname. The expert Bailey that Huang Bidian mentioned was her teacher. Yun Jian nodded. You can say that. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have learned all of this. Then I can't give you the letter. Huang Bidian frowned and refused. In the eyes of everyone present, Huang Bidian was a supreme existence. The head of the Huang family. The head of the Huang family, which was ranked first among the martial arts families. Huang Bidian directly rejected Yun Jian. No one was surprised. However, they all thought that Yun Jian would definitely beg Huang Bidian for what she wanted. She seemed to be begging Huang Bidian for the letter. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian would beg Huang Bidian to give her the letter, Yun Jian's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. Standing in front of everyone, her petite figure refracted the words that made everyone present unable to help but submit to her. In the next second, she flipped her hands and two butterfly knives appeared in her hands, one on each side. The blades reflected the sunlight, and the light from the knives blinded everyone's eyes. They couldn't help but squint. When everyone opened their eyes to look at her, they heard her cold words suddenly ring out. Chapter 1832. She had to get this letter. It was not only because her mentor in her past life had taught her these skills and allowed her to survive in that bloody world. Yun Jian's intuition told her that her mentor, Bailey expert, had an inextricable relationship with the thousands of continents. She had sent Wulan to search the entire Yulong mainland, but she could not find any trace of her mentor, Bailey expert. On Earth, as long as one was a righteous earthling, nothing could escape her eyes. In Yulong mainland, the power of the sorcerer tribe was spread all over the continent. However, she could not find any information about her mentor. What did this mean? The only explanation was that her mentor was neither from Earth nor the Yulong mainland. It was more likely that he came from a continent of a higher level than Yulong mainland. Although Yulong mainland was not the lowest level continent, in the thousands of years since the sorcerer god's departure, Yulong mainland had fallen from its former glory of being second only to deity mainland. Yun Jian's intuition told her that her mentor was most likely from deity mainland. Yun Jian did not know that Ce had regained all his memories, so she did not ask him. Her soul returned to reality. When Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone's pupils contracted. Even Huang Bidian sucked in a deep breath. Kosha mercenaries? Slaying God? Apart from Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai, who took a deep breath, Lin Xiang also cried out in surprise. It was obvious that they knew what these two names represented. After exclaiming this, Lin Xiang frowned. He didn't even know why he was exclaiming. These two titles, I seem to have heard of them somewhere before. University students would not pay attention to these things. Most university students would only pay attention to the opposite sex. They did not pay attention to national or international affairs at all. Sometimes, when the class subscribed to a newspaper, the newspaper would report on national or international affairs. Only then would the students pay more attention to it. Of course, the people who knew about organizations or people like Kosha mercenaries and slaying God were usually those who were in this world. Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai must have heard about it. But for university students like Lin Xiang, Song Jieqi, Song Jiehui, and Wang Gonggang, even if they wanted to know, they had no way to do so. Haven't you heard a lot of things? You brat, you always say that you've heard of something big. Where did you hear it from? I can't tell you the details, so you should wash up and go to the side. Song Jiehui walked over and knocked on Lin Xiang's head as he said with a half-smile. Lin Xiang scratched his head and pursed his lips. I really seem to have heard of it somewhere before, but even so, whether it was Song Jieqi, Song Jiehui, Lin Xiang, or Wang Gonggang, they were all shocked by Yun Jian's arrogant words. Perhaps Yun Jian's tone was too arrogant. Or perhaps it was because the titles of Kosha mercenaries and slaying God sounded domineering. When they turned to look at Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai's reaction, they saw their eyes widen. When they looked at Yun Jian again, they were so shocked that it was as if they had eaten dog poop. They looked as if they had heard something big that they had never heard of before. Especially Huang Bihai, who had been rude to Yun Jian from the start, he was the most unsettled. His hand was trembling like a spring as he pointed at Yun Jian. He screamed in horror, "Yyuu, ahem." Huang Bidian was obviously smarter than Huang Bihai. He immediately stopped Huang Bihai from spilling the beans. Yun Jian's self-disclosure shocked Huang Bidian, but it changed his mind. Slaying God of Kosha mercenaries. Slaying God alone was enough to wipe out the Huang family, let alone slaying God who had Kosha mercenaries under her command. Therefore, Huang Bidian did not change his mind. He could not. However, Huang Bidian had already handed over the letter when Wulan had sent someone to retrieve it. After 2 seconds of silence, Huang Bidian looked at Yun Jian and made his request. Chapter 1833. Huang Bidian's words caused everyone's hearts to tighten. Especially Song Jieqi, Song Jiehui, and Wang Gonggang. Song Jieqi had even clasped her hands together. She was clearly not the main character, so why was she feeling nervous? It was as if she was the one who had to endure the hypnotism of the Huang family's eldest disciple. However, Song Jieqi knew that her current reaction was no doubt that she was putting herself in the shoes of Yun Jian and Huang Bidian. It was like a racing enthusiast watching his favorite racer race against another excellent racer at the critical moment of rushing to the finish line, which made him feel nervous both physically and mentally. That was how Song Jieqi felt at this moment. Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, narrowed her eyes slightly. Her gaze was indifferent, but in front of everyone, she accepted Huang Bitian's challenge without hesitation. All right. As long as she was given the chance, Yun Jian had never encountered anything she couldn't accomplish. Yun Jian knew that Huang Bitian had taken a step back. In the beginning, Huang Bitian had kept his mouth shut and refused to hand over the letter no matter what. Sometimes, revealing one's identity could save a lot of trouble. The reason Yun Jian brought up her identity today was to change Huang Bitian's mind. Yun Jian wasn't stupid. Unless she had no other choice, she wouldn't use the most absolute method to achieve her goal. For example, if Huang Bitian rejected her and she went on a killing spree, then not only would she be a lunatic, but she would also be a fool. If one were to ask why this was the case, first of all, Yun Jian would be exhausting her own strength to wipe out the entire Huang family. The only benefit she would receive was a letter. Furthermore, she would have to use her Kosha mercenaries' influence to erase the Huang family's traces in history and on the international stage. It would be a waste of money and effort. It would be better for Huang Bitian to take a step back. It would be more convenient and simpler. Ling, call your eldest senior brother out. Only then did Huang Bitian turn his head to look at his youngest daughter, Huang Ling, Huang Linger pursed her lips and muttered, Dad, you could have just given the letter to this big sister. Why did you have to call eldest senior brother out? It's so troublesome. Besides, she doesn't look like a bad person. Just as Huang Linger said this, she saw her father, Huang Bitian, cast a sidelong glance at her. Seeing this, Huang Linger's words were all buried in her stomach. In the end, Huang Linger was still somewhat afraid of her father. She was frightened by Huang Bitian's words. She turned around and pouted, then angrily ran to find her senior brother. My apologies. Master Bailey's items have attracted a lot of attention in recent years. Many people have pretended to be Master Bailey's disciples and wanted to get them from me. So, please forgive me. After Huang Linger ran off to find her eldest senior brother, Huang Bitian turned his head and cupped his fists towards Yun Jian to express his apology. It's fine, Yun Jian replied. Naturally, this was not a problem for her. Hypnotism was indeed her teacher's ultimate skill. Her teacher had also said that in this hypnotism, the most important thing for a scholar was talent. Those without talent would only be able to scratch the surface. Yun Jian was not boasting. Her teacher had told her this before. Her talent was the best among all the people he had met in his life. In less than 10 minutes, more than 10 people came into the house from the backyard. The man in the lead was about 20 years old. He had a dignified appearance and wore martial arts attire. He was the eldest senior brother of the Huang family that Huang Bitian had mentioned. The group of people beside the eldest senior brother of the Huang family consisted of both men and women. However, all of them wore proper martial arts attire. Clearly, these people were different from those who came to the mountain to learn martial arts. Chapter 1834. The orthodox successor of the Huang family's martial arts was led by this dignified man in his 20s. The group of people behind him were all successors of the Huang family. Apart from the Huang family eldest senior brother, any disciple that the Huang family head, Huang Bitian, took in would be included in the ranking. Huang Bitian's eldest disciple was this eldest senior brother. His second disciple was everyone's second senior brother, the second junior brother of his eldest disciple. In order of seniority, Huang Ling, was Huang Bitian's daughter and his youngest disciple. Thus, she was the junior sister of these people. The ranking of orthodox martial arts families was indeed complicated. Those who were not in the circle would be confused by this complicated relationship. In short, there was one thing to remember. Wushu was the orthodox unique skill of an aristocratic family. The disciples of the head of the aristocratic family were the ones who were ranked among the senior brothers, junior brothers, sisters, and junior sisters. They were different from those who came to learn from Huang Bihai like Song Jiechi and the others. It was not only in terms of martial arts that the aristocratic families only passed down to their own members. They only taught some simple martial arts to outsiders. In terms of physical strength and endurance, the orthodox disciples of the Huang family started learning martial arts from a young age. As for people like Song Jiechi who came to learn martial arts by themselves, some of them would leave after a few days or a few months. Their perseverance was definitely not as good as the orthodox disciples of the aristocratic families who started practicing martial arts from a young age. Master. The dozen or so people led by the Huang family eldest senior brother walked up to Huang Bitian and used the most standard martial arts hand gesture to bow to him. Huang Bitian nodded and waved his hand. Master, why did you call us out? Eldest senior brother of the Huang family asked. The Huang family eldest senior brother was called Huang Yiqing. This was not the Huang family eldest senior brother's real name. After the disciples of the Huang family became Huang Bitian's disciples, they were given names. According to the order, the men were called Huang Yiqing, Huang Erqing, the women were called Huang Yihong, Huang Erhong. These names were not particularly pleasant to the ears, but Huang Bitian felt comfortable using them. Of course, the Huang family eldest senior brother was already one, so the women were not named Huang Yihong. Huang Bitian's youngest daughter, Huang Ling, was an exception. I only called your eldest senior brother. Why did you call out the other senior brothers and sisters? Huang Bitian glanced at Huang Linger from the corner of his eyes. Hee, isn't this for everyone to join in the fun? Dad, look, everyone is bitterly practicing martial arts. This is so tiring. People should strike a balance between work and rest. Huang Linger mischievously winked at Huang Bitian. Huang Linger's senior brothers and sisters all covered their mouths and laughed. It was obvious that Huang Linger's mischievousness had not been going on for a day or two. You. Huang Bitian was so infuriated by Huang Linger's words that he wanted to scold her, but he couldn't bear to do so. In the end, he could only keep his mouth shut. All right, so be it. Huang Bitian's face darkened. In the end, he introduced Yun Jian to Huang Yiqing and asked Huang Yiqing to hypnotize Yun Jian. If she can withstand your hypnosis technique, then she must be the disciple of Bailey Jianren. Huang Bitian finished speaking and added another sentence. Yes. Huang Yiqing was very obedient. He only turned his head to look at Yun Jian, and did not show any other expression. The Huang family eldest senior brother, Huang Yiqing, was a dignified and upright man. His face was unforgettable. She's Bailey Jianren's disciple? Master, I don't think there's even a need to try. Who is eldest senior brother? Don't you know how strong he is? Also, this girl is so skinny. Everyone has seen Bailey Jianren's appearance in the past. How could such a powerful master accept such a skinny girl as his disciple? Chapter 1835. The girl who spoke up was one of Huang Linger's senior sisters and Huang Bitian's disciple. Because she was ranked 9th among all the senior brothers and junior sisters, she was called Huang Jiuhong. As Huang Jiuhong spoke, she glanced at Yun Jian. From her expression, it seemed that she didn't like Yun Jian very much. Unlike Wang Gonggang, who didn't like Yun Jian, Wang Gonggang didn't have any bad feelings towards Yun Jian. At least, he didn't want to kill Yun Jian. Huang Jiuhong also didn't have any bad intentions towards Yun Jian. Ordinary people didn't encounter many things and wouldn't be envied by girls. That was because they themselves were existences that didn't shine. If a person didn't exist, they would be automatically ignored by others. But a shining figure like Yun Jian was a piece of gold no matter where she went. As long as it was gold, it would always attract attention. Huang Jiuhong only looked down on Yun Jian because she thought she could defeat her most admired eldest senior brother. How many people had her eldest senior brother used the hypnosis technique taught by Master Bailey? How many people had fled because of her eldest senior brother's hypnosis technique? Why did Yun Jian think she could compare to her eldest senior brother? Jiuhong, back down. What did Master teach you not to look down on others? Even Huang Bitian himself thought that Yun Jian definitely couldn't compare to his eldest senior disciple. But Huang Bitian was a good person. He gave face to everyone. Some people would stand in front of you and look down on you, mocking and ridiculing you. Some people would look down on you, but would give you face. When comparing the two, the latter would naturally be better. When Huang Jiuhong heard Huang Bitian's words, she curled her lips and muttered to herself, "What's wrong with you? You don't have any skills to begin with, and you don't allow people to talk about you? Humph, then just wait and see. Watch my eldest senior brother beat you up." Once Huang Jiuhong gave the order, Huang Yiqing stepped forward and began hypnotizing Yun Jian in front of everyone, as per his master's order. Yun Jian could tell that Huang Yiqing's hypnotism was the most rudimentary and low-level technique he had ever learned. Perhaps this kind of hypnotism could be used in front of other people for a while, but in front of professionals, it was not qualified at all. The eldest disciple of the Huang family, Huang Yiqing, who was standing in front of Yun Jian, took out a rope with a small ball hanging from it. He placed the small ball in front of Yun Jian and shook it twice. Then, he said in a delicate voice, "Close your eyes and open them again." These were all steps of hypnosis. Yun Jian did as she was told. Eldest senior brother is awesome. Let this overconfident girl know your strength. At this moment, Yun Jian heard Huang Jiuhong shout at Huang Yiqing. The surrounding people watched the scene with all their might. They were surrounded by people from all over the country who came here to learn martial arts. At this moment, Yun Jian and Huang Yiqing were looking at each other and using hypnotism. How could they not be interested in such an amazing battle? Some of them would only get to see such an interesting battle once in their lives. Hence, they all gathered over. Those who could not all climbed to higher places to watch. For a moment, everyone held their breaths. At this moment, Yun Jian opened her eyes. After Huang Jiuhong finished speaking, she suddenly said to Huang Yiqing, "Look, your junior sister is calling you." When Huang Yiqing heard Yun Jian's words, for some reason, he followed Yun Jian's words and glanced in Huang Jiuhong's direction. The moment he came back to his senses, his eyes met with Yun Jian's eyes again. However, there was an unusual color in Yun Jian's eyes. In the next second, Huang Yiqing suddenly hugged his head as if he had seen something he did not want to see. In front of everyone, he hugged his head and squatted on the ground. When Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai saw this, their faces turned pale with fright. Everyone's faces changed in shock. She actually managed to hypnotize Yiqing. She managed to hypnotize Yiqing in such a short time. This power, I've only seen it from expert Bailey. Huang Bidian was so shocked that he cried out on the spot. The words Yun Jian said to Huang Yiqing just now was the turning point in the counter-hypnosis. After hearing Huang Bitian's words and seeing that the battle had ended before it even started, and that Yun Jian had managed to hypnotize Huang Yiqing instead, everyone present had the same expression on their faces. They were so shocked that they could not react for a long time. They just stared blankly at the beautiful girl. Chapter 1836. Perhaps no one had seen when Yun Jian had turned the tables and hypnotized Huang Yiqing. But in fact, from the moment Huang Yiqing asked her to close and open her eyes, she had already begun to hypnotize Huang Yiqing. As for Huang Yiqing's hypnotism, it had no effect on her at all. Later, she told Huang Yiqing that his junior apprentice sister was calling him. Everyone knew that hypnotism required many external factors to hypnotize someone. The process of hypnotism was also related to a person's willpower. By the time Huang Yiqing turned around, he was already affected by external factors. If Yun Jian hypnotized him directly, he would see the horrifying image in his mind. This was the reason why he hugged his head and squatted down to exclaim in shock. Huang Bidian had already guessed that Yun Jian was expert Bailey's disciple. Today, he had asked his eldest disciple to hypnotize Yun Jian to confirm that Yun Jian was expert Bailey's disciple. Secondly, it was just a formality. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Yun Jian's ability today was almost the same as Bailey's shows back then. In fact, her talent in hypnotism was even higher than expert Bailey's. Huang Bidian opened his mouth several times, wanting to speak, but in the end, he swallowed his saliva and remained silent. "Master, this This means that she, really is expert Bailey's disciple? Huang Jiuhong, who had been disdainful of Yun Jian, swallowed his saliva and licked his lips as he asked Huang Bidian in astonishment. Although they didn't know who Master Bailey was, Song Jiechi, Wang Gonggang, and the others could guess that Master Bailey wasn't an ordinary person when they saw how respectful Huang Bidian and the others were when they mentioned his name. Was Yun Jian really expert Bailey's disciple? Everyone looked at Huang Bidian in unison, waiting for him to confirm it. In front of everyone, Huang Bidian nodded. Yes. However, Huang Bidian walked over to Yun Jian under Huang Jiuhong's shit-eating expression. He bowed deeply to Yun Jian and said, I'm sorry for offending you in the past. Back then, I was fortunate enough to save Master Bailey. Master Bailey also helped my Huang clan to become one of the top martial arts families. Master Bailey's kindness to my Huang clan is far greater than the simple act of saving his life. Therefore, even though my Huang clan has been in a difficult situation all these years, I didn't open the letter that Master Bailey left for me, telling me to look for him if I was in trouble. Since you are the disciple of Master Bailey, I will give you this letter as promised. After Huang Bidian finished speaking, he turned around and returned to his residence to retrieve the letter. About 10 minutes later, Huang Bidian returned with a thick envelope in his hand. There were probably several layers of envelopes inside this envelope. The letter left behind by Bailey Jiao was at the innermost layer. From this, it could be seen how important this letter was to Huang Bidian. Once the envelope was handed to Yun Jian, the latter unwrapped the envelope in a few moves. Is this the letter left behind by Master Bailey? Let us take a look. We've already opened it anyway. Huang Jiuhong quickly dispelled the awkward atmosphere. She walked over and was about to look at the envelope in Yun Jian's hand. Just as she looked over, Yun Jian dodged. Huang Jiuhong stomped her foot and pouted. In the end, Huang Bidian glared at her and she didn't say anything. Everyone watched as Yun Jian opened the envelope and took it out. When she saw the words on the envelope, her eyes lit up. Then, she seemed to be shocked by the words on the envelope. Seeing this, the surrounding group of people were somewhat curious. Even Huang Bidian was curious. Yun Jian was the kind of person who could remain calm even if the sky collapsed. Huang Bidian felt the same way about her. When he saw her shocked expression, he couldn't help but be even more surprised. In fact, Yun Jian wasn't just shocked. Her heart was in turmoil. However, she didn't show it on her face. Chapter 1837. Yun Jian was rarely surprised. However, whenever she was surprised, she would only appear slightly surprised on the surface. However, for someone like Yun Jian, who did not show her emotions on her face, a little surprise was enough to express the shock in her heart. The content of the letter was very simple. However, if one thought about it carefully, there was an inconceivable magical power to it. The content of the letter was as follows: Shah, my little disciple, although we have not formally acknowledged each other as your master, please allow me to address you as such. Were you surprised when you saw this letter? Are you surprised that I knew that the person who opened the letter wasn't family head Huang, but you? Were there many doubts in your heart? All these years, I know your every move, including you as the sorcerer god. How is it? That brat divine lord did not mistreat you, did he? If that brat mistreated you, I will definitely teach him a lesson in the future. That brat has been pestering you ever since you were the sorcerer god. He is like a shadow. I have helped you to stop him several times. The next time we meet, you must treat me to 100 bottles of good wine. No, that brat divine lord should be the one to invite me. If that brat dares to not invite me, let him hug his butt tightly. Don't let me catch him and give him 100 whips. Alright, I know that you must have many doubts now. It is not appropriate for me to say too much in this letter. Alright, my little disciple, I will not force you to say anything more. My good disciple, remember one thing. If you want to find me, go to the hunting academy. I will wait for you there. The way this letter was written was indeed her teacher's style. The handwriting was also written by her teacher, so there was no mistake. Yun Jian blinked. She was indeed surprised by the words in the letter. How did her teacher know that the person who received this letter was definitely her? Could it be that he had the ability to predict the future? Furthermore, he seemed to have known her when she was the sorcerer god in her previous life. He even knew Ce, who was the divine lord. Yun Jian had not recovered all her memories as the sorcerer god, so she could not find traces of her teacher. And her teacher actually wanted her to go to the hunting school to find him? Everything was premeditated. Even when he was slaying God in his past life, his master's appearance was something that was bound to happen. Or perhaps, all of this was just a coincidence. Yun Jian, there seems to be words at the back of the letter too. Song Jiechi, who was standing in the distance, couldn't see the contents of the letter in Yun Jian's hand clearly. However, she could vaguely see that there were words on the back of the letter in Yun Jian's hand, so she reminded her. Upon hearing this, Yun Jian relaxed her brows slightly. She flipped the letter to the back and saw that the same words were written on the back of the letter. Following the long letter in front of him, it was clear that his teacher had added a sentence that sounded like an old urchin. By the way, after you come to the hunting school, bring the Divine Lord Kid here if it's convenient. However, even if you don't bring the Divine Lord Kid here, I know that kid is like a sticky candy, no different from a bum bug. Wherever you go, he'll definitely follow. When Yun Jian read this, her teacher's smug expression as if he knew everything like the back of his hand flashed across her mind, along with the way he gently stroked his beard. She twitched the corner of her mouth, not knowing how to describe her current expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What's written on the letter? Are you done reading it? Can you show it to us now? The more Huang Jiuhong looked at Yun Jian, the more curious she became. If it wasn't for Huang Bitian's gaze, Huang Jiuhong would have leaned over to look at the contents of the letter in Yun Jian's hand. Since the letter is already hers, let's not crowd around. Disperse, let's go and cultivate. Don't crowd around here. Huang Bitian waved his hand. Master, this letter. Yun Jian was the one who took it from you. What's wrong with us taking a look? Before Huang Jiuhong could finish her sentence. On the other side, Yun Jian had taken out a lighter from nowhere and burned the letter. After doing this, Yun Jian walked out. It seemed that she had to go to the hunting school this time. Since her teacher knew many of her identities, including her as the witch god. Then, did her teacher know the background of the mysterious person? And as the sorcerer goddess, why did she fall? Chapter 1838. Yun Jian was unaware of all these doubts and doubts. She had no way of finding them out at this moment. To solve her doubts, she had to go to the hunting school. Seeing Yun Jian burn the letter and walk out of the Huang family's door, everyone was shocked. Master, she burned the letter. She. Huang Jiuhong screamed in shock. The letter has been given to her. How she deals with it is her own business. Jiuhong, you are so impatient. If you continue to be like this in the future, then don't learn our Huang family's inherited martial arts. Our inherited martial arts are not suitable for someone as impatient as you. Huang Bitian interrupted Huang Jiuhong's words and said coldly with a sullen face. Hearing Huang Bitian's words, Huang Jiuhong was dumbfounded. Finally, he swallowed his saliva and was speechless. Yun Jian, who was walking down the stairs, turned her head halfway and glanced at the plaque with the words, Huang Family of the Heavenly Tao, written on it. Then, she turned her head to look at Song Jiechi and the rest. If Song Jiechi and the rest didn't know the way, she wouldn't have found the Huang family so quickly, and she wouldn't have received the letter her master left for her so quickly. Yun Jian pursed her lips and curled her lips at Song Jiechi before she left. We'll meet again if fate wills it. In the vast sea of people, if fate wills it, even 1 billion people wouldn't be able to stop fate from meeting again. But if fate wills it, even if they lived in the same neighborhood, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. After Yun Jian said that, she turned and left. Seeing this, Song Jiechi was stunned. Then, she waved at Yun Jian and whispered, goodbye. After her rebirth, this was the first time Yun Jian went to the Inhun organization. Before her rebirth, she was an agent from the Inhun organization. The Inhun organization wasn't located on some remote island. Yun Jian knew the exact location. The Inhun organization wasn't under the jurisdiction of any country. It was extremely difficult for outsiders to enter Inhun organization. Some people couldn't even find the entrance to Inhun organization. The Inhun organization's base was huge. It would take a long time to drive from one end to the other. Yun Jian made a trip back to Longmen City and waited until the 10th of November to depart for Inhun Group. Before that, Mo Sen and Adam were left in Longmen City. Ce had to be by her side, and Lan Su had just gotten pregnant. Adam naturally couldn't bear to take Lan Su on a long journey to Inhun organization. Mo Sen was the elder brother. In consideration of his younger brother, Mo Sen decided to return to Inhun organization by himself. Of course, during this period of time, Mo Sen and Rockberry maintained the kind of relationship where they would occasionally greet each other when they saw each other, but neither of them would speak much. Luo Berry didn't talk much because she was shy. When she saw the man she liked, she would talk incoherently. Mo Sen, on the other hand, did not know what to say. Mo Sen returned to Inhun earlier than Yun Jian. On the night of his return, he came to Qin Yu's house early in the morning. Yun Jian snatched Qin Yu's pillow and sat on the sofa, waiting for Qin Yu's homemade pastries for her to eat. Qin Yu had stopped researching poisons recently and had started researching pastries instead. The pastries tasted horrible, but they were getting better recently. When Qin Yu brought out the pastries she made herself, Gu Nianji pinched her nose without giving face. Huh? What's this burnt smell? It's suffocating. It's good enough that I'm cooking for you for free. Why are you yelling? You're eating my food and staying at my place. You're even sleeping on my bed and wearing my pajamas. You're such a busybody, Gu Nianji. Qin Yu retorted. Okay, let sister have a taste. Seeing Qin Yu bring out the pastries, Gu Nianji stretched her hand to take them. Sister Qin Yu's pastries are getting better and better. Luo Berry was a sweet talker. She stuck her tongue out at Qin Yu after taking a bite. She shoved the pastry into her mouth, chewing and swallowing it without hesitation. After finishing the pastries slowly, Yun Jian closed her eyes and rested her hands behind her head. After 2 seconds of silence, Yun Jian suddenly spoke. You've been standing outside the door for half an hour. Aren't you going to knock? Are your legs tired? When Yun Jian finished, everyone's hands paused. Luo Berry blinked and ran to open the door. Luo Berry did not know who it was. She thought it was Sister Qin Yu's brother Yun Yi. However, when Luo Berry opened the door and wanted to call out, Brother Yun Yi, obediently, she was met with Mo Sen's calm and handsome face. She was so shocked that she almost fell backward. Chapter 1839. It wasn't the first time Luo Berry had been so careless. Perhaps it was her personality. When she suddenly saw someone she wanted to see, she would be frightened. After Mo Sen helped her up, Luo Berry blushed. How old are you? Why are you so careless? What if you fall and hurt yourself? Mo Sen yelled at Luo Berry after straightening him up. What if she fell and hurt herself? He was about to leave and return to the Inhun organization. She didn't know how to take care of herself. What if she hurt herself again? I'm sorry. Luo Berry shrank back from Mo Sen's shout. She couldn't help but apologize to Mo Sr. Little Strawberry, you didn't hit him. Why are you apologizing? Can't you tell that he cares about you? Gu Nianji walked over and grabbed Luo Berry's hand, pulling her to the side. With that, Gu Nianji was about to pull Luo Berry to the side. Never see you again? When Mo Sen heard Gu Nianji say that Luo Berry would never see him again, his heart tightened. Gu Nianji giggled at Yun Jian, then turned to look at Mo Sen fiercely. She put her arm around Luo Berry's shoulder and said to Mo Sen confidently, that's right. My little strawberry will be with me every day from now on. We'll sleep together, bathe together. Oh, right, we'll even rub each other's backs when we bathe. Gu Nianji even reached out to rub Luo Berry's back. It looked like she was really rubbing Luo Berry's back. Gu Nianji's words made Luo Berry's face turn as red as an apple. Yun Jian admired it as she ate the pastries. She was so relaxed that she almost crossed her legs. No. Hearing Gu Nianji's words, Mo Sen's face darkened. He said it without even thinking. Luo Berry wanted to sleep with Gu Nianji? Bathe together? She wanted to rub each other's backs when bathing? He would never allow it. For some reason, Luo Berry's face turned red when she heard Mo Sen say no. Ioyo, what right do you have to say no? I'm being intimate with my little strawberry. Why are you, an outsider, joining in the fun? Speaking of which, my little strawberry's development is really good. Those two big breasts, I can't even hold them with my hands. Gu Nianji smiled wretchedly. She even moved her fingers up and down in a circle to demonstrate grabbing breasts. There was no need to mention how wretched that was. At this moment, Mo Sen's face was as dark as it could get. The next second, he suddenly grabbed Luo Berry's hand and dragged her out. Before he left, he said, I'm taking her away. I can't let her stay in this dirty place. Just because of this reason, he took her away. Gu Nianji waited for Mo Sen to take Rockberry away, then held her stomach and rolled around on the sofa where Yun Jian was sitting. The sofa was very soft, and Yun Jian sat on it, trembling from Gu Nianji's actions. In the end, Yun Jian slapped Gu Nianji off the sofa and onto the floor. Less than 2 days after Mo Sen took Rockberry to an Han organization, on the 10th of November, Yun Jian also set off for an Han organization. On the 11th of November, CE had just returned to his residence from an Han organization's base. As soon as he arrived, his eyes lit up slightly. His residence was surrounded by balloons, and the display in the middle of the room even had a big, "Happy Birthday," written on it. Birthday? Only then did CE remember that today was his birthday. Since he was young, he had never celebrated his birthday again after his mother passed away. In the end, he even forgot his own birthday. Who released the balloons today? Who released the birthday wishes? Only the 4 leaders of an Han organization could enter his residence. Other than that, if anyone else entered, the snipers outside would immediately shoot the person who did not have time to enter, regardless of gender. Just as CE was thinking about this, the bathroom door in his residence suddenly opened, and a petite figure flashed out of the bathroom. Yun Jian, who had just finished showering, exuded a milky fragrance. Her hair was disheveled and was still wet. Yun Jian only had a bath towel around her. Her voluptuous breasts were wrapped under the short bath towel, revealing half of her full breasts. Her little feet were bare as she stood on the floor. Just looking at her was enough to arouse one's desire. Chapter 1840. Yun Jian had been in the Han organization for many years in her previous life, so she knew the inside of the organization like the back of her hand. However, she had never come into contact with the leader of an Han organization in her previous life. The Han organization had a residence specially for the leader, but from what Yun Jian knew in her previous life, the leader rarely came back here. Hence, Yun Jian didn't know much about the leader of the Han organization, CE. In addition, CE's residence was surrounded by an inescapable net. There were snipers on all 4 sides, and the place was strictly guarded 24/7. Even a fly wouldn't be able to fly in. Other than the 4 leaders of the Han organization, Adam, Mo Sen, Shuaying, and Lin Wei, anyone else who stepped into this place would be killed without mercy. This rule had been set by CE when Yun Jian was in the Han organization in her previous life. In her second life, Yun Jian didn't expect that after going around in circles, she would escape from the control of the Han organization after obtaining the Kosha mercenaries with much difficulty in her previous life. After going back and forth, she was back here today. And today, she was in the room of the leader of the Han organization, CE. No matter how good the snipers at the door were, they couldn't sense when Yunjian avoided their attention and walked into Si Yi's residence. No one knew that Yunjian had not only walked into Si Yi's residence, but also decorated it meticulously. This lively style was completely different from the lifeless style of Si Yi's original residence. Si Yi's residence in the Inhan organization was all black, especially his bedroom, which stood out. Before Yunjian came, the curtains in the room were all black. As long as the curtains were drawn, even day would turn into night. The bed, including the pillows and covers on the bed, were all black. The wall at the head of the bed was also black, except for the other 3 walls which were painted white, and some other places were painted with other colors that could be ignored. The entire layout was black. Yunjian went into the house and blew up a few balloons. She wrote the words, "Happy Birthday," on the screen. The atmosphere in the house was obviously much better, and it was no longer as lifeless as it was at the beginning. The room was filled with Si Yi's unique scent. Yunjian had been lying on Si Yi's bed and taking a nap for the entire morning. It was noon and the sun was high in the sky. Even though the air conditioner was turned on, Yunjian still felt sticky. Hence, she borrowed Si Yi's towel and entered Si Yi's bathroom to take a cold shower. However, she saw Si Yi the moment she stepped out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her waist. Yunjian wasn't wearing anything except a towel wrapped around her chest. She had just taken a shower, so the fragrance of her body made Si Yi, who had just returned to the room, feel an indescribable feeling. He felt his lower body tighten. You're back?" Yunjian gulped and looked up at Si Yi, who was walking toward her. Her red lips parted slightly as she held on to the towel to prevent it from falling. Yunjian had no idea how alluring she looked to Si Yi. Si Yi stared at Yunjian with a burning gaze, looking like he wanted to bore a hole through her. Yunjian was a little embarrassed from being stared at. She blushed and looked down at the floor, saying, "Cough. It's your birthday today, so I came all the way from Longmen City to celebrate your birthday." Before she could finish, however, a familiar fresh scent that belonged to a man wafted to her nose. In the next second, Si Yi wrapped his arms around Yunjian, who was only wrapped in a towel with half of her hands still holding on to the towel. Yunjian opened her mouth and buried herself in Si Yi's embrace. She was so embarrassed that she could not speak. Si Yi's magnetic and rich male voice rang above her. There was a subtle hint of uncontrollable emotion in his voice that was different from before. "Xiao Jian, you're so beautiful." Chapter 1841. Yunjian's entire body trembled slightly. Si Yi was acting very strangely today. In spite of it, Yunjian had come prepared. A second ago, Si Yi had placed his hands on Yunjian's buttocks, causing Yunjian's face to turn red. The next second, Yunjian stood on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around Si Yi's neck, and kissed him. Si Yi had not expected Yunjian to suddenly kiss him. Her sweet lips were like ice cream on a hot summer day. Just as you were about to faint from the heat, your eyes were about to swell, your whole body was sweating profusely, and you were about to faint from heatstroke. It gave you a refreshing feeling. However, to Si Yi, her beautiful lips were even sweeter than an ice cream on a hot summer day when he was about to faint. She was an existence that could not be compared to any cheap goods because she was his one and only. Although this was not the first time she had kissed Si Yi, Yunjian did not know why, but she felt that this kiss with Si Yi was very different from the previous ones. Perhaps it was because she only had a towel wrapped around her body today? Towel. Yunjian suddenly remembered that she only had a towel wrapped around her body, and the towel only covered half of her chest. She was not wearing anything underneath. Yunjian's slender arms and half of her chest were in close contact with the air, and it was chilly. At first, Yunjian still used one hand to hold on to the shaky and unstable towel. However, when she saw Si Yi earlier, Yunjian forgot about this. She reached out and wrapped her arms around Si Yi's neck, and kissed him on the lips. She only remembered her current situation when she lost herself in the kiss. At this moment, Yunjian's face flushed red. Just as Yun Jian was about to withdraw her hand from Siyi's neck, the shaky towel on her body suddenly disintegrated and fell. That white towel had fallen off. In a lounge somewhere in the Inhun organization, Lin Wei sat on the sofa in the lounge. Beside him, Shuang was half sitting on Lin Wei's table. His slender legs, perfect curves, and that handsome face. Lin Wei's appearance leaned towards calmness, with a hint of handsomeness in his aura. Although he was handsome, Lin Wei gave people the impression that he was calm and experienced. The only flaw was the long scar on Shui Ying's neck. But the deeper the scar, the more it showed his masculinity. Although it looked terrifying, it didn't affect Shui Ying's handsomeness at all. At this moment, Shuang was half sitting on the table. One of his slender legs was leaning against the table while the other was resting on the ground. No matter how one looked at him, one could see how handsome he was. Although Lin Wei looked like an old Taoist, his appearance was young. His face was enough to charm a group of young girls. At this moment, Shuang shook his legs and looked sideways at Lin Wei. He suddenly teased, "Lin Wei, when are you going to find a woman to carry on your family line?" If it was in the past, Shuang wouldn't have dared to call Lin Wei an old bachelor. Although Shuang was the most handsome of the four great commanders, in terms of strength, Lin Wei was the strongest of the four great commanders. Shuang dared to say this today because Mo Sen had returned to the Inhun organization. Mo Sen and Lin Wei had a good relationship. If he said a few words to Lin Wei and Lin Wei got angry, he could still find Mo Sen to back him up. Lin Wei was a man of few words. Just as Shuang finished speaking, Lin Wei suddenly replied seriously, "Soon." Although these words were serious, Shuang rolled his eyes. Since when wasn't Lin Wei a man of few words? He still hoped to chat with him? Dream on. Cough, Adam's wife is already pregnant. You're already 25 years old. You can't fall behind. Shuang jumped down from the table and walked to Lin Wei. He patted Lin Wei's shoulder and said this. With that, he walked out of the office in a carefree manner. Along the way, he even greeted Mo Sen, who was walking to the office. Siyi's residence, in the bedroom. Chapter 1842. The moment Siyi picked her up and threw her onto the bed, Yun Jian's cheeks were as red as a monkey's butt. She was certain that she had never blushed like this in her entire life. It was not just in this life. As slaying god and witch goddess 2 lifetimes ago, she had not blushed as much as she did today. Siyi tossed the towel far away and tossed Yun Jian gently onto the soft bed. Siyi's eyes were glued to Yun Jian. Even when he took off his jacket and shirt and unbuckled his belt, his gaze did not leave her. Siyi exposed his muscular chest and stared at Yun Jian before making his way to Yun Jian, who was placed on the bed. His pants were still on, but his eyes were fixed on Yun Jian, never moving away from the deep gaze that met hers. Siyi, who could be sharp and ruthless to others without batting an eyelid, was now attracted to Yun Jian. There was an unprecedented gentleness on his face. It was a gentle expression that might seem a little forced to an outsider. Seeing Yun Jian with her arms crossed and a smirk on Siyi's face, his magnetic voice suddenly rang, making Yun Jian's ears tingle and her body tremble. "Xiao Jian, move your hand away." It was undeniable that Siyi was getting more and more wretched. If the elderly saw him for the first time, they would only think that Siyi was decent and reliable. He was not lustful and made people feel that he was dependable. If Yun Jian heard what the elderly said now, Yun Jian would probably smash them to death with a brick. It would be a miracle. She half covered her chest with her hand to prevent herself from being exposed to Siyi. Siyi had been looking at her lustfully since just now and was even asking her to move her hand away. If anyone dared to say that Siyi was not lustful, she would fight them to the death. In spite of it, Yun Jian was too embarrassed to move her hand away. Yun Jian's blush was comparable to Chili's. Just as she spoke, her words were blocked by Siyi's lips. The man was really self-taught when it came to kissing. Perhaps it was due to his previous experience, Siyi caught her easily. Yun Jian was numb from the kiss, unable to muster any energy. She didn't even know when the hand that was covering her chest had been moved away and replaced with a bigger palm. And Hun Group's lounge. Ever since the noisy snow eagle left, Ling Wei's ears finally quieted down. He lifted his slender legs and stood up from the sofa. Just as he was about to go to the killer training camp, he bumped into Mo Sr. "You're going to the training camp?" Lin. It was no wonder that the two of them had similar personalities. They even had a general understanding of where the other was going. Okay. Lin Wei nodded. Lin Wei was the one who spoke the most when talking to Mo Sr. "Snow Eagle said that you're looking for a woman to carry on your family line?" Mo-san was not shy at all. "I'm planning to." Lin Wei answered Mo-san briefly as he followed him out. "Who are you looking for?" Mo-san asked again. "We'll talk about it later." Lin Wei did not have any requirements for his other half. He felt that it was enough for him to have a woman who could bear his children. As long as this woman was loyal to him and did not cheat on him, he would not find another woman in his life. It did not matter if there was no sex for love. If the future Snow Eagle heard Lin Wei's monologue, he would probably kick him and scold him. What happened to the sex for love? Go eat sh*t. There hasn't been any outstanding assassins in the training camp recently. Lin Wei had already arrived at the assassin training camp with Mo Senator. He stood not far away from the training camp and spoke briefly. "I'll pay attention and send someone over as soon as there's one," Mo-san said to Lin Wei as they walked. In Si-yi's bedroom. Si-yi had already taken off all his clothes. The two were hugging each other. Chapter 1843. Xiao Jian, you're mine. You're mine. Si-yi's breath blew against Yun Jian's ear as he licked and kissed Yun Jian's ear. Yun Jian was numb from head to toe, unable to react for a long time. Just as Yun Jian was numb from embarrassment and Si-yi was about to enter the main topic, ding, 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 ding. The doorbell of Si-yi's residence rang. A certain someone kept pressing the doorbell of Si-yi's residence like his life depended on it. Seeing that no one was opening the door, the ringing grew louder and more frequent. Accompanied by the ringing of the doorbell was a certain someone's desperate shout, "Young master, I have something to ask of you." From the sound of the voice, it was obvious who had rung the doorbell. It was Shuang. Other than him, no one else dared to press the doorbell of Si-yi's residence. The ringing of the doorbell was like a basin of cold water, extinguishing the pleasant atmosphere just now. In spite of it, Yun Jian and Si-yi were burning with passion. Even a downpour would not be able to extinguish their flames. Si-yi growled and got up from the bed, picking up the towel on the floor and running his fingers through his black hair before heading for the door. Shuang, who was outside the door, pressed the doorbell twice in surprise. His young master used to come out quickly. Why did he? Just as he was thinking about it, the door opened. Shuang was about to say what he wanted to say when he saw Si-yi, who only had a towel around his lower body. Why was his young master dressed like this today? Shuang did not ask, of course, but just as he was about to speak, Si-yi growled at him with a dark expression. "You! Get out in 3 seconds if you don't want to die." His young master had never spoken in such a furious tone, but he had said it today. In addition, Shuang knew that his young master would only lose control of his emotions in front of one person in his life and would only rage for that person. Shuang suddenly realized something. He was so scared that he quickly closed the door and ran away. "Young master. I was wrong. I'll get out, I'll get out." Shuang ran like the wind, disappearing from the place in 3 seconds. Si-yi had the urge to strangle Shuang. Was it cold again today? Si-yi was so angry that he wanted to go back to his room to shoot Shuang. However, he scratched his black hair and went back to the room with a look of frustration. Yun Jian was no longer on the bed. Yun Jian had gone to the bathroom. Thinking about it, Si was even more furious. If Shuang was here, he would choke him to death. It was then that Si felt the room turn dark. The black curtains were suddenly closed by the remote control. His surroundings instantly turned pitch black, and no light could be seen from his 5 fingers. There was a sudden glint in Siyi's eyes. Just as Siyi did not know what was going on, a petite figure suddenly threw herself into his arms. Siyi was only wearing a white towel. After the petite figure threw herself into his arms, Siyi could clearly feel that she was naked. Suddenly, Siyi felt someone bite his ear and Yunjian's voice rang out. "Happy birthday. I'll be by your side every birthday in the future." These words were not a passionate declaration of love. Many people might not know what love was, but this thing called love had already taken root and sprouted in their hearts. Yunjian's words touched Siyi for a moment. Chapter 1844. If Yunjian was asked to name the one thing she did not regret the most after her rebirth, she would definitely say it without hesitation. The one thing she did not regret the most was being reborn and meeting him. There was no girl who did not care about her chastity. But she was willing to give her best to him and never regret it. This was Yunjian's wish as the sorcerer god. Whether it was her as the sorcerer god or Yunjian, she did not regret meeting him or becoming his woman. Because she knew that she was not the only one who loved him. In his heart, she was something far more precious than his own life. Even if he had to sacrifice countless of his own lives in exchange for hers. He was willing. As long as she was fine. This was the wish of a divine lord. And a divine lord's life goal was not for anyone else, but for her. When the two of them were joined, Yunjian did not feel any pain because her heart did not hurt. Her heart was sweet and blissful. Although the pain of her first time was hard for Yunjian to accept, she was willing to do it for him. The wind was gentle and the sun was bright. Under the bright sky, it was a romantic afternoon. From 12:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., Si did not let go of Yunjian. He enjoyed her beautiful body over and over again without stopping. What an Hun organization, what Kosha mercenaries, what an Hun organization was busy with, everything was meaningless to Ce. Because in his heart, Yunjian was far more important than anything else. 8:30 p.m. After being tortured by Ce for the entire afternoon, Yunjian was paralyzed on the bed and could not move at all. She had thought that knife wounds and gunshot wounds were the most painful injuries, but why were these things so tiring and painful as well? If she had known it would be so painful from the start, she would have waited until she was an adult before doing it. Yunjian even wanted to kill someone now. Why didn't Shuang break it completely? It seemed like she had to kidnap Si Luo. Of course, these were just Yunjian's thoughts. She did not regret being able to become his woman. Ce and Yunjian were sleeping on the bed. He hugged Yunjian tightly and refused to let go. If it weren't for Yunjian begging him to let her go on the bed, he would probably be able to fight until the next morning. As soon as they were done, Ce walked into the bathroom and wiped Yunjian's body carefully with a basin of water. She even wiped the blood off Yunjian's face. Ce didn't even care about herself. She first wiped Yunjian's body carefully, then went into the bathroom to take a cold shower. She came over and hugged Yunjian, holding her in her arms and smelling her hair. That was great. His Shao Jian was his now, rightfully so. If someone dared to plagiarize his Shao Jian in the future and he spoke up again, it would be perfectly justifiable. Shao Jian, does it hurt? Ce placed his hand on Yunjian's stomach, feeling a little regretful about his earlier rudeness. Yunjian turned away and ignored him. Ce panicked when he saw that. He propped himself up and turned to look at Yunjian. Shao Jian, where does it hurt? Let me see. Don't look. Yunjian suddenly folded her legs and turned around to show him her back. She couldn't possibly spread her legs for him to see where it hurt. Ce had no idea what was wrong with him as he hugged Yunjian and rubbed and blew on her. It was obvious how much he cherished Yunjian. If the 4 leaders of an Hun group saw Ce's act of showing weakness, they would probably yell, "This isn't our young master." Yun Jian did not know what was wrong with her. Since when did her voice become like this? Yun Jian patted her cheeks lightly and shook her head in disbelief. Once she thought of what he did to her just now, Yun Jian's cheeks were redder than a red pepper. They actually did it. Cough, cough. Ring, ring, ring. At this moment, a phone rang. As if to prevent awkwardness, Yun Jian reached for her phone on the bedside table. Suddenly, a hand went around her shoulder and took the phone before she did, placing it in her hand and telling her, "Don't move if it hurts." "I'll do it." He would do everything. Ce looked a little like a pug trying to please its owner. Yun Jian could not help smiling. She answered the call. It was Luo Mei, asking Yun Jian to go out and play. Yun Jian agreed. After she hung up, Ce's voice followed, "You're not allowed to go. You're still hurting." Wasn't she still hurting down there? I'm not hurting anymore. Yun Jian suddenly felt shy. She pushed Ce away and quickly got up to put on her clothes. After Yun Jian got up, Ce saw a red spot on the bed where Ce and her were having sex. Yun Jian was halfway through putting on her clothes when she suddenly saw this. She walked over and wanted to pull off the sheets. Ce grabbed her hand. "What's wrong?" "I'm going to shower first." Yun Jian blushed and did not dare to look at Ce. Chapter 1845. The bedsheet instantly became a priceless treasure in Ce's eyes. Yun Jian could not out-talk Ce in the end. She wanted to pull the bedsheet when Ce was not paying attention, but the soreness between her legs numbed her and made her legs wobble. If it were not for her good stamina, Yun Jian would have knelt on the floor long ago. Yun Jian, however, turned to her side and fell toward the edge of the bed instead of kneeling. If a normal person was tortured by Ce for 8 hours, they would probably not even be able to lift their legs. Yun Jian had just stood up to put on her clothes and take a few steps. She had only taken a few steps when the soreness in her thighs made her unable to stand up again. He had just gone at her for 8 hours. Yun Jian did not have any common sense, so she agreed to go out and play without hesitation, thinking that she could still walk. Now, however, her legs were numb. The lingering pain after the battle was not excruciating but soft. Yun Jian felt like her legs were like springs when she stood up, unable to move at all. She only managed to avoid falling on the floor by pouncing on the bed. Ce scooped Yun Jian up to his chest and pulled her into his embrace. "You're not allowed to go out today. You're not allowed to wash the bedsheet," Ce said domineeringly as he gripped her hand. His Xiao Jian wanted to run away the moment she became his woman. He would not allow it. "I've already made an appointment. I'll go out later," Yun Jian said, too shy to look at Ce's face. Ce, who had just had sex, was not satisfied yet. He had let her go earlier because he felt that she was tired. Now that he heard Yun Jian, however, Ce smirked. "Xiao Jian, you're not tired? Let's continue then." As he spoke, he turned and pinned Yun Jian on the bed. Yun Jian's words were shoved to the back of her head by Ce as well. Before she was forced to go 3 rounds, Yun Jian could only think of one word: beast. Soft and lingering moans could be heard continuously. It wasn't until 10:30 p.m. that Ce finally ended her assault. It was too late now. Yun Jian did not even have the strength to lift her hand, let alone look for the rockberry. Her legs were soft as if they didn't belong to her at all. Who told her that doing such a thing would consume so much energy? At this moment, Ce's hands were on her hips. Yun Jian suddenly remembered that she had agreed to go out with Luo Berry at 8 o'clock. It was already past 10 o'clock. She quickly picked up the phone and made a call. Beep, beep, beep. The phone rang 3 times. After 3 rings, Luo Mei picked up Yun Jian's call and said anxiously, "Yun Jian, are you okay? He didn't fall, did he? Nothing happened, right? I called you so many times, but you didn't pick up. I was so worried." Rockberry's voice was heard. The phone rang, but Ce pressed it down forcefully. He even set the phone's ringtone to none, before continuing to do the deed. Yun Jian had actually arrived at an Hun organization on the 10th of November, which was yesterday. However, she had stayed at Luo Mei's place for a night, so Luo Mei knew that she was here. Mo Sun was very gentlemanly to Luo Mei. He had arranged for her to stay alone, unlike Shuang who forced Si Luo to stay in his room. Yun Jian's eyes flickered when she heard Luo Mei's words. She immediately found a ridiculous excuse and said to Luo Mei, "I accidentally fell and couldn't move. That's why I didn't call you to explain." This was the most ridiculous lie that Yun Jian had ever told. She didn't expect Luo Mei to believe her. "Ah. Are you in pain? Do you need me to come over and take a look? Have you seen a doctor? Wait for me, I'll be right there." Luo Mei panicked. She really thought that Yun Jian was injured, so she quickly spoke up. "I'm fine now. It's just a minor injury. You don't have to come over," Yun Jian said to Luo Mei with a hoarse voice. "Are you really fine?" Luo Mei asked worriedly. Yun Jian nodded. She wasn't really injured. If Luo Mei accompanied her to the hospital, the doctor would probably only say, "Young lady, don't overindulge in your desires at such a young age. Your voice is hoarse. Do you have a cold? You must have a good rest," Luo Berry added. At that, Yun Jian glared at Ce who could not stop his hands from fondling her breasts, only to see the silent Ce flashing her an indulgent, handsome smile. Chapter 1846. Ce smirked, realizing that he was becoming more and more addicted to his Xiao Jian. Her entire body belonged to him. Every part of her body was in contact with his soul. Even her toes were not spared. Ce arched his handsome face and reached out to pull Yun Jian into his embrace. His hands moved up and down. Yun Jian patted Ce's hand twice, but Ce's eyes were fixed on her. In the end, she was too embarrassed to call Luo Mei while being touched by Ce, so she found an excuse to end the call. Yun Jian did not get out of bed for 3 days and 3 nights. Ce was like a beast that was about to starve to death now that he had tasted meat. It was the first time Yun Jian felt extreme soreness in her back. In spite of it, Yun Jian was still Yun Jian. Her stamina was incomparable to ordinary women. As they were heading to the hunting school on the 15th of November, Yun Jian stayed with Ce for a while longer. On the 14th of November, Yun Jian returned to Longmen City with Ce. Yun Jian was going to the hunting school for a year, so she returned to Longmen City today to visit her younger brother, Xiao Yunzhu, and the rest. Knowing that Yun Jian was going to the hunting school for a year, Ce did not say a word about it. In spite of it, Yun Jian knew that just like what her master had said, even if she did not bring him to the hunting school, he would go to the hunting school himself to look for her. The day before they went to the hunting school, Yun Jian and Ce went to Wuning Yi Elementary School where Xiao Yunzhu and Duanli studied. Wuning Yi Elementary School was beautifying the school recently. Not only were the students beautifying their classrooms, the school was also building a flat cement road. After Xiao Yunzhu and Duanli were done with their tasks, they strode with their short legs toward where Yun Jian and Ce were outside the school gate. Brother Ce. Sister Yun Jian. Xiao Yunzhu and Duanli rushed into the arms of Ce and Yun Jian respectively. Yun Jian pinched Duanli's cheeks and grabbed her hand. Ce grabbed Xiao Yunzhu's collar and dragged him to the kindergarten to pick up Duanya. Knowing that her daughter would be away for a year, Qin Yiru prepared a sumptuous dinner. Everyone sat around the table and enjoyed the sumptuous dinner. After that, Yun Jian and Ce returned home. Ce used the excuse that Yun Jian was going to be away for a year and pressed Yun Jian down on the bed, the sofa, the door, the bathroom, after a round of suppression. Young men who had tasted meat were the fiercest. Yun Jian truly understood the meaning of this sentence. Ce kissed and touched her, vividly displaying the word, immoral. The next morning, Ce personally sent Yun Jian to Min City Military Academy. When they arrived at the entrance, everyone looked over. Yun Jian and Ce were not only compatible in terms of looks, but they were also tall and well-proportioned. No matter where they went, they would be a very beautiful couple. Therefore, they attracted the attention of a large group of students around Min's City Military Academy. Yun Jian did not enter the school because she had already seen Yu Xiaoluo's car parked there. Ce grabbed Yun Jian's hand and led her forward in 2 or 3 steps by Ce. Yun Jian, you're here. Hurry up and get in the car. Get ready to go. Yu Xiaoluo waved at Yun Jian when he saw Yun Jian. There were a few military academy instructors standing beside Yu Xiaoluo. They were obviously there to send them off. Yun Jian could see that Yu Xiaoluo's jeep was already filled with the 2nd and 3rd place Special Forces soldiers from the previous selection competition. After hearing Yu Xiaoluo's words, Yun Jian nodded. However, before Yun Jian could get into the car, Yu Xiaoluo suddenly saw that there were red patches on Yun Jian's neck. He asked, Yun Jian, what happened to your neck? Were you bitten by a mosquito? Why did the mosquito bite your neck in the shape of a mouth? Are you okay? It's not good if the mosquito is poisonous. Do you want to go to the hospital? Yu Xiaoluo glanced at Yun Jian worriedly as he said this. Yun Jian's face turned red when she heard this. Unexpectedly, just as Yu Xiaoluo finished speaking, Ce suddenly grabbed Yun Jian's hand and pulled Yun Jian to his side. Then, he used a cold tone to declare his sovereignty over Yu Xiaoluo. Chapter 1847. Ce was truly shameless. It was natural for him to be lewd in front of Yun Jian, but he always wore a cold and expressionless face when declaring his sovereignty in front of outsiders. Even Yu Xiaoluo blushed when he said that, but Ce did not look embarrassed at all. Yun Jian wished she could find a hole to crawl into. Instructor, we can go now. I'm fine. Yun Jian tugged at the corner of her lips, trying to change the topic. In spite of it, Ce's grip on her hand was tight as Ce spoke to Yu Xiaoluo shamelessly. Cough, cough, cough. Even Yu Xiaoluo's ears were red as he coughed a few times to express his awkwardness. He had seen the redness on Yun Jian's neck all of a sudden and was afraid that she was bitten by something or had an allergic reaction. He was worried that Yun Jian's ability would be affected if she was sent to the hunting school. Never had Yu Xiaoluo imagined that it was left behind after a young couple's love affair. If he had known, he would not have asked even if he was beaten to death. Get in. Yu Xiaoluo turned to look at Yun Jian and told Yun Jian, trying to cover up the awkward atmosphere just now. Yun Jian nodded and was about to ask Ce to let go of her hand when he suddenly spoke. Yu Xiaoluo, who was already on his way to the driver's seat, knocked his head against the door, causing a huge bump to form on his head from the pain. Ce was still holding on to Yu Xiaoluo's hand as he asked, Xiao Jian, does it still hurt there? He had just finished talking about the red strawberry and now he was bringing it up. Even a proper man like Yu Xiaoluo could not help letting his imagination run wild. It doesn't hurt anymore. Let go. Yun Jian's rosy cheeks made Ce reluctant to let her go. It was just a hunting school. It was easy for him to see her. There would be plenty of time for him to take his time. He would make her pregnant with his child. That's right, Ce had been up to some tricks these days. When Ce slept with his Xiao Jian, he never used the condom and penetrated her directly every time. Yun Jian had probably forgotten about the existence of this thing long ago. Yun Jian might be powerful, but she knew nothing about this. As for Ce, he had already read up on such books. Naturally, he was better than Yun Jian, who hadn't done any research. Ce's ultimate goal was obvious. He wanted to stuff a tiny Ce in Xiao Jian's stomach. This is great. Yun Jian finally got into the jeep. Under Ce's watchful gaze, she left the place and parted with Ce for a short while. Ce watched Yun Jian's jeep disappear from his sight before he boarded the private helicopter that Mo Sen sent to fetch him back to An Hun Group and left Longmen City. Nothing had changed. Some things, however, might have changed drastically when Yun Jian returned. Sitting in the jeep, Yun Jian tilted her head to look out of the window with squinted eyes. Cough. I can see that he cares a lot about you, Yun Jian. If it were someone else, puppy love, I definitely wouldn't support it. But if it's you guys, I'll give you my blessings. Young couples like you two can be sweet for the rest of your lives. I'm so envious of you two youngsters. Yu Xiaoluo suddenly spoke to Yun Jian. There was a hint of emotion in his words, making Yun Jian nod slightly. In just a few minutes, they returned to the main topic. Yu Xiaoluo immediately told Yun Jian and the rest of the arrangements. Chapter 1848. The hunting school had been held many times, and this year, it was already the 19th season. The mortality rate and elimination rate of the hunting school were very high, so it was the burial ground of the special forces. At the same time, it was also the destination of all the special forces in the world. Anyone who graduated from the hunting school was top-notch in terms of strength and military rank. Today, Yun Jian and the rest were not going to the hunting school, but the only 6-star hotel in the world, the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei. The 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei was the only 6-star hotel in the world. It was located in the city of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. The Empire Hotel was located on the coast 40 minutes away from the airport. It was so large that it exceeded the standards of a hotel. There was a bowling alley, a badminton court, a golf course, a fitness center, a spa, and many other facilities. What was even more exaggerated was that there was a well-decorated theater in the hotel, which played the hottest movies every day. The 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei had a total area of more than 180 hectares. It was one of the largest resorts in the world. Here, the price of staying at an imperial hotel for a night was scarily low among the upper class. Only 100,000 yuan was needed to enjoy the imperial treatment. If ordinary people heard this, they might faint from shock. It was indeed expensive, but to the rich, this price was nothing. Moreover, they were staying in an imperial suite. After all, the imperial treatment was different from ordinary hotels. Here, one could enjoy everything that one could enjoy outside. Beauty treatments, dramas, movies, you name it, you could find it here. Of course, the hunting school paid for the members who were about to participate in the hunting school's training. Therefore, after arranging for Yun Jian and the rest to stay here, Yu Xiaoluo returned to country Z. Because the elimination rate and death rate of the hunting school were very high, all the members were invited here. It was similar to the last sumptuous dinner before being beheaded in ancient times. After Yun Jian and the rest arrived, Yu Xiaoluo left. The 3 special forces representing Country Z walked into the living room of the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei. Just the living room alone was magnificent and luxurious. It was so luxurious that people did not dare to breathe. The 2 special forces soldiers who came with Yun Jian were above 40 years old. Therefore, Yun Jian looked a little younger with them. The 2 of them had obviously never stayed in such a luxurious place before, so when they walked into the hall, they didn't know where to stay. Moreover, they didn't even know how to speak this country's language. Yun Jian went to the counter while the 2 of them were at a loss. She knocked on the counter and spoke to the foreign attendant in Dubai's local Arabic under her gaze. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Hunting school members from Z country, 3 of them. Please check in. It was not Yun Jian's first time staying at the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei. She had been here a few times in her previous life, so she was not unfamiliar with the place. When the foreign waitress heard Yun Jian's words, she lowered her head at first. When she looked up at Yun Jian, she was shocked. The person who spoke was not from her country. This little kid was obviously a foreigner. How could he speak her country's language? She almost thought that this little kid was a citizen of her country when she heard his voice. And she was one of the Z country's special forces that was about to participate in the hunting school? You can speak Arabic. The special forces soldier who was with Yun Jian exclaimed after hearing Yun Jian's words. Chapter 1849. The Special Forces soldier who asked Yun Jian was named Yang Chen. He was born in an ordinary family. Later, he joined the army because of his good physique. He performed well in the army, and he was listed as a 2S wanted criminal with his comrades nearly 10 times. Later on, he even participated in a mission to capture a 3S level wanted criminal, and he barely succeeded. When he was 35 years old, he took part in a special forces training. Although it was not as cruel as the training in the hunting school, it was still very experienced. Yang Chen was 41 years old this year. His strength was equal to his age. He was not old, but he was already one of the best in the army. Seeing that Yun Jian could speak Arabic in Dubai at such a young age, Yang Chen was naturally surprised. The hunting school was located in the tropical jungle of Venezuela. The language spoken in the hunting school was Venezuelan Spanish. Therefore, before coming here, Yang Chen and the other Special Forces soldier Ding Jianlin had been sent to learn Spanish in depth. But they did not learn Arabic in Dubai. The world's only 6-star Empire Hotel was located in Dubai, while the hunting school was located in Venezuela. They were two different countries, and they spoke different languages. Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin did not expect to go to the 6-star Empire Hotel in Dubai before going to the hunting school, so they were not prepared at all. But they did not expect that Yun Jian could speak Arabic. But after being stunned for a short while, they reacted quickly. Yun Jian could win the first place in the preliminaries, and was valued by the leaders at such a young age. Her strength was definitely not bad, so it was not surprising that she could speak Arabic. Just when Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin were thinking about this, Yun Jian had taken their room cards from the front desk and handed them to Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin, room cards. Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin took their room cards, feeling a little scared. The hunting school was famous for its inhumane, devil training, and the three of them represented Z country to participate in the training. Their ultimate goal was to win glory for their country. Before entering the hunting school, of course they were scared. What were they scared of? They were scared that they could not win glory for their country. But how come Yun Jian was not scared at all? On the contrary, after giving their room cards to Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin, Yun Jian waved to Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin, and turned to her main room. While walking, Yun Jian left them with a gorgeous back view, and waved her hand. "I will go first, make yourself at home." Yun Jian knew the terrain here like the back of her hand. Chen Yang and Ding Jianlin were surprised that Yun Jian could find where they lived without asking anyone. The two of them gulped. Fortunately, the hotel had a language exchange service for people from different countries. After asking around, the two of them found their respective rooms. On the other hand, Yun Jian wandered lazily between the luxurious buildings with her room card in hand and finally came to her room. This was a hotel room with imperial treatment. Here, just the toilet alone was bigger than an ordinary hotel room. There was also a living room, kitchen, upper and lower floors, as well as an observation deck, a hot spring, a swimming pool, and so on. Yun Jian took a quick shower in the bathroom and went downstairs to the shooting range. Here, the shooting range was not only about bows and arrows. The most popular shooting in Dubai was shooting with real guns. When Yun Jian walked in, she saw many people holding real guns in front of various targets, learning shooting under the guidance of coaches. People who lived in the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei were definitely rich. Like Yun Jian, there were a total of 31 people who were going to the hunting school. Not all the people who lived in the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei were members of the hunting school. There were a lot of rich people living here, and Yun Jian and her group were just passing by. When Yun Jian walked in, she saw many young people who loved guns from different countries were using guns under the guidance of coaches. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, and walked lazily to a closed shooting room. The shooting room was the only room in the shooting range. It had been abandoned for more than a year, and no one had entered it to shoot. That was because this was the VIP room that Yun Jian had reserved in her past life. Other than her, slaying God, no one else could enter. She would enter the room directly every time she came here. Just a second before Yun Jian was about to enter the room, a coach hurried over from afar and stopped her, telling her, "You're not allowed to enter the room." Chapter 1850. The instructor hurriedly ran over to stop Yunjian. He did not explain why he did not allow Yunjian to enter the shooting range. All he said was that she could not enter the private room and asked Yunjian to follow him to another place to practice her shooting skills. Yunjian narrowed her eyes at the sight. She narrowed her eyes because she was satisfied with the instructor's method. Or rather, she was satisfied with the shooting range's method. Slaying God had disappeared for more than a year. The last time she came to the shooting range in Brunei's 6-star Empire Hotel was a year ago, and she had not been there for more than a year. Logically speaking, if the shooting range did not see her and someone needed a private room, they could blackmail the person by offering double the price. After all, there was no shortage of rich people here. Obviously, the shooting range was very honest. If she did not come, the only private room in the shooting range would be empty and no one would be allowed to enter. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and replied to the instructor, "Okay." She would go somewhere else to practice. She did not want to make things difficult for the instructor. The instructor smiled and asked Yunjian in a friendly tone, "You're from country Z, aren't you?" The instructor spoke fluent local Arabic, the same as his conversation with Yunjian earlier. "Yes." Yunjian walked in front. She nodded and gave a brief reply. "You speak Arabic so well. You sound like a Dubai native." The instructor could not help but exclaim. Yunjian did not reply to his exclamation. The instructor did not feel awkward and pointed to a spot for Yunjian. "Young lady, let's go over there. The people near the target are all from country Z. It'll be easier for you to communicate with them if you stand next to them. Moreover, there's only one target nearby. People who shoot in the shooting range would usually choose a gun. The pistols and rifles in this shooting range were all real guns. People who came from all over the country wanted to experience real guns. Therefore, the targets around them were already filled with people except for the one the instructor had mentioned." Yunjian nodded with narrowed eyes. Seeing that Yunjian was the same, the instructor brought Yunjian over. There were a few young men in their 20s standing next to the target. These men were dressed in branded clothes and looked very cool. There were also a few young girls in their 20s standing beside them. They were all dressed in famous brands, and even their hands and necks were full of luxurious luxury goods. They were all from Z country and had been playing with guns under the instruction of their coach. At this moment, one of the more handsome young men was holding a pistol with both hands and shooting targets under the instruction of the coach. The other young men and girls watched the young man play with the gun. "Li Wei, you can do it. Show us how you hit the bullseye with your first shot." The young men and women next to him were shouting at the handsome young man who was holding a pistol and aiming it at the target with trembling hands. Hearing this shout, Yunjian walked over. She could clearly see that the young man called Li Wei's hands were trembling. It was obvious that he wanted to stand out in front of a group of people, but he didn't have the confidence to hit the mark. The young man was called Shen Li Wei. Bang! The shot was fired in the end. Shen Li Wei's hand holding the pistol trembled. When a real gun fired a bullet, the sound of the gunshot was especially loud. The gun would also shake twice with the impulse of the shot. At this time, the person holding the gun had to hold the gun steady. Generally, people who played with guns would be shocked by the shot of the gun every time. This man called Shen Li Wei was no exception. His body trembled slightly. When playing with a real gun, the scariest thing was to hurt oneself. People who weren't familiar with guns would tremble because of fear. "Hit the bullseye." The instructor's voice sounded, making the man called Shen Li Wei heave a big sigh of relief. A few young people praised him from the side. "Wow. Although it's not the bullseye, it's his first time playing with a gun and he hit the bullseye. Our Li Wei is indeed a gun expert." Just when Shen Li Wei was enjoying the praise from the people around him, he and the people around him suddenly saw a petite and slender figure walking around the crowd. They saw Yunjian standing on the target. She picked up the pistol on the table and loaded it without waiting for the instructor behind her to come over. She skillfully held the gun with one hand and fired 3 shots at the bullseye without even looking. The gunshots sounded again. 10. 10 bullseye. The instructor stood forward and opened his eyes wide. Under the shocked gaze of the group of young people, Yun Jian put down the gun and said to the instructor who followed her in horror. Chapter 1851. Generally, the effective range of a handgun was around 50 to 100 meters. Any further and it would not be accurate. Those who could pull out a gun and hit someone within 30 meters were sharpshooters. However, the maximum range of a handgun was far more than that. Of course, it was possible to use a handgun to shoot something beyond 100 meters. However, beyond 100 meters, it would be very difficult to shoot accurately. Therefore, the maximum range of a shooting gallery like this was usually around 50 to 100 meters. Any further and there would not be a place for people to continue shooting. After all, this was not a special forces training base. It was a place for tourists to experience shooting. However, normal tourists would have a certain degree of difficulty even if they were to shoot at a 20-meter target. Therefore, most of the targets around here were only 20 meters. After hearing Yun Jian's words and seeing Yun Jian's amazing shooting skills just now, 3 bullets were fired consecutively and all of them hit the bullseye. That was not all. She even said that she wanted the target to be adjusted to the furthest shooting range. Because the maximum range of a gun was not just 100 meters. However, in a shooting gallery, the maximum range that could be adjusted was only 100 meters. 100 meters. Could she do it? Just now, Yun Jian was speaking in Chinese. Therefore, the young people beside her who had just shot a bullseye as if they had won the world championship could understand what Yun Jian was saying. The coach also spoke Chinese. Naturally, he could understand. Therefore, when they heard Yun Jian's words, the young men and women, including the coaches around them, were all shocked. You. Young lady, you. Are you sure? You really want to adjust the target to the maximum range? 100 meters? The coach was in disbelief. Hitting 3 bullseye within 20 meters. Yun Jian's result had already made everyone present exclaim. She was indeed amazing. The coach behind Yun Jian initially thought that Yun Jian did not know how to use a gun. However, the feeling of shooting a target with a 20-meter range was different from shooting a target with a 100-meter range. This was a difference of 80 meters. There was a difference of 80 meters between them. What kind of concept was that? For example, a sharpshooter who could pull out a gun and shoot a person within 30 meters was a sharpshooter. However, if a sharpshooter who could pull out a gun and shoot a person within 30 meters was able to shoot a person 100 meters away, it was a completely different concept. Even the coaches in the shooting gallery did not have many who could hit the bullseye within 100 meters. At a distance of 100 meters, even hitting the target was a problem. Of course, I'm sure, Yun Jian glanced at the coach and said in front of the dumbfounded young people. A target 100 meters away was still too close for her. However, the furthest range here was only a few meters. After all, even though this shooting gallery was large, it was still within the gallery. There was no shooting range as far as the eye could see. This was the reason why Yun Jian wanted to enter the gallery. The furthest shooting range of her box was 200 meters. Okay. I'll go move it. After hearing Yun Jian's words, the coach took a deep breath. Just as he was about to order someone to move the bullseye, Yun Jian interrupted him. There's no need, Yun Jian said abruptly. Hearing this, the young men and women standing nearby all breathed a sigh of relief for some reason. Even though Yun Jian had amazed them, after hearing Yun Jian's words, they still thought to themselves. Indeed, hitting the bullseye within 20 meters with 3 bullseye was already the limit. This young lady said that she wanted to shoot the bullseye within 100 meters. Was she trying to be brave? Just as these young men and women were thinking this, Yun Jian's words rang out again. Yun Jian's words immediately made the young men and women widen their eyes. The coach was even more shocked. When Yun Jian saw a girl at the entrance of the shooting gallery, she narrowed her eyes and said, "You're right." Chapter 1852. Yun Jian wasn't bragging, but shooting from 20 meters and 100 meters with a pistol wasn't shooting at all. To her, it was like a child playing house. It wasn't challenging at all. To put it bluntly, to Yun Jian, there was no difference between playing and not playing at all. The effective range of a pistol wasn't far. An ordinary pistol's effective range might only be 50 to 100 meters, but some pistols had a longer range, such as the assault pistol. Of course, the specific range depended on how the person operating the pistol handled their weapon. Yun Jian didn't come to the shooting range to play with pistols. When Yun Jian saw the woman who came in, she waved at the coach and made her way to her. This woman was the person in charge of the shooting range. She was also the god of marksmanship who broke the record for the world's longest sniper rifle. The woman's name was Luo Shi. Seeing Yun Jian walking toward Luo Shi, the coach's heart almost jumped to his head. Luo Shi was the person in charge of their shooting range. Most importantly, Luo Shi was ruthless. If an ordinary person dared to provoke her, Luo Shi's lightest punishment would be to break one of their legs. Note that this was the lightest punishment. "Little girl. You." When the coach reacted and wanted to call Yun Jian back, Yun Jian was already in front of Luo Shi. The coach didn't dare to go forward. He covered his face and exclaimed, "Oh my God," in their Dubai Arabic. Then, "Who is that woman?" Shen Liwei and the others who were standing beside Yun Jian just now were suspicious when they saw Yun Jian walking toward the woman. They asked their coaches about it when they saw how frightened their coaches were. As soon as the question was asked, Shen Liwei and the others' coaches' face instantly changed. Then, under their questioning, he softly said to them, "She's the person in charge of our shooting range, Luo Shi. She's also the terrifying woman who broke the record for the world's longest sniper rifle. She's known as the god of marksmanship. She's internationally famous. Luo Shi is ruthless. In the past, a coach in our shooting range accidentally provoked her and was shot dead by her on the spot. The people who hung out with Luo Shi were all internationally famous people." The coach's words went without saying. What he meant was that the people who played with Luo Shi were all demons who killed without batting an eyelid. There was no doubt that they were the international leaders of the underworld, the military families, and so on. Therefore, even if Luo Shi killed someone, she wasn't afraid. Because he had a backer. Hearing the coach's words, the young men and women led by Shen Liwei all took a deep breath. Shen Liwei and the others were all young masters and daughters of rich families. Coming out to play this time was purely entertainment for rich people like them. With money, they could go wherever they wanted and play in whichever country they wanted. No one could stop them. However, they were all children of legitimate merchants. Although they were rich, they had never heard of such a dark matter. Thus, at this moment, they were all a little flustered. At this moment, Yun Jian walked over to Luo Shi. She didn't treat Luo Shi with respect like the coach at all. On the contrary, Yun Jian walked directly behind Luo Shi. Before Luo Shi could react, she walked behind Luo Shi and knocked her on the head with a chestnut. This action, the coaches in the distance, including Shen Liwei and the others, were all shocked. Someone was about to be shot to death for provoking Luo Shi verbally, yet Yun Jian dared to go over and hit the girl's head with a chestnut. Did she want to die? Everyone was scared half to death. However, they saw that Yun Jian had said something. After Luo Shi reacted, not only did she not shoot Yun Jian in anger, Luo Shi instead widened her eyes and looked at Yun Jian. Chapter 1853. Luo Shi turned around under everyone's gaze. Then, just as everyone thought that Luo Shi had been knocked on the head by Yun Jian and was about to fly into a rage, Luo Shi suddenly turned around and gave Yun Jian a bashful smile. The instructors, Shen Liwei, and the others in the distance were shocked again. Especially Shen Liwei and the others. Wasn't Luo Shi, who was known as the God of Guns, a terrifying woman? She had even shot a coach to death because he had annoyed her. Then shouldn't Luo Shi be an extremely terrifying existence? Just now, Yun Jian had given Luo Shi a chestnut with her hand when she walked over, rapping the girl's head hard. Even if a normal person was standing there, if someone suddenly walked behind them and hit them hard on the head, they would feel uncomfortable. Not to mention a terrifying woman like Luo Shi. If the coach were to do what Yun Jian had just done, he would probably be so dead that not even his bones could be found. But after Yun Jian knocked on Luo Shi's head, she said something, and Luo Shi actually turned around and smiled shyly at Yun Jian. This action made Shen Liwei and the other instructors, who were standing in place, open their mouths. Even some of the instructors, who didn't know what was going on, opened their mouths wide when they saw this scene. Perhaps tourists like Shen Liwei didn't know how terrifying Luo Shi was, but how could the instructors not know? How terrifying was Luo Shi? The instructors didn't know how to describe this woman's terror with words. However, just when the crowd thought that this was already the most shocking scene they had seen, in the next breath, an even more shocking turn of events occurred. After Luo Shi saw Yun Jian, she smiled shyly. Not only did her unchanging cold face turn into a smile, but she also opened her arms and was about to hug Yun Jian. Luo Shi was already in her 30s, but she looked like she was only in her 20s. Her skin was well maintained, and if she dressed up, no one would doubt that she was in her teens. Similarly, Luo Shi always had a straight face in front of everyone. She never smiled or joked with others. But today, Luo Shi's actions not only overturned everyone's understanding of her, but also made all the coaches go crazy. She actually reached out to Yun Jian and hugged her. Not far away, a coach raised his glasses, craned his neck, and said in an English pronunciation that everyone present could understand, somewhat incredulously. "Oh my God, this can't be real, right?" Luo Shi's strength was outstanding, which was a stark contrast to her cold personality. She didn't like to get close to people. She didn't like to get close to people. She never hugged anyone and only focused on shooting. For someone like her, she had dedicated her entire life to learning how to shoot. That was why she was able to break the record for the longest shooting range of a sniper rifle. She was also known as the God of Shooting. This was probably the reason why Luo Shi was still single. As long as a person abandoned everything to learn something because he or she liked it, as long as this person wasn't stupid, most people would achieve more or less. In everyone's eyes, Luo Shi was such a cold and isolated person. But today, she actually took the initiative to hug a girl. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian and Luo Shi were going to hug each other, Yun Jian's expression changed. What happened next was even more shocking. Most people would be overjoyed if a woman like Luo Shi, who had such high achievements and terrifying strength, took the initiative to hug anyone. But when Luo Shi was about to hug her, Yun Jian reached out and stopped Luo Shi from pouncing on her. She gave Luo Shi a smile in front of everyone and said something that everyone thought was suicidal. Chapter 1854. Throw. This little girl actually dared to say that she would throw Luo Shi into the manure pit again? Again? It was obvious that Yun Jian and Luo Shi were old acquaintances. Could it be that Luo Shi had been thrown into the manure pit by Yun Jian before? Luo Shi, the person in charge of the shooting range of the Six-Star Empire Hotel in Brunei, who once broke the world record for the longest range of a sniper rifle, and who was followed by a group of people who were not international leaders, world leaders, or business politicians. She was actually thrown into the manure pit by a little girl, this. At this moment, not only were the instructors in the distance staring in disbelief, but even Shen Liwei and the group of young people standing next to them, as well as the foreigners around them who could understand Yun Jian's words, were all stunned on the spot. Obviously, Luo Shi's identity was not ordinary. At least many people present knew her. They thought that Luo Shi would be furious after hearing Yun Jian's words, but what did the crowd see in the next second? They saw that after Yun Jian finished speaking, Luo Shi obediently withdrew her hand that was about to hug Yunjian. Luo Shi was also trembling because of Yunjian's words, as if she had recalled a terrifying memory. Luo Shi had indeed been thrown into the manure pit by Yunjian before. The reason was that when the two first met, Luo Shi did not agree with Yunjian. Later, Yunjian directly threw her into the manure pit. After being fished out of the manure pit, Luo Shi also thought of taking revenge on Yunjian. As she took revenge, she did not know when Luo Shi and Yunjian started to walk together. And it was the type that would prostrate themselves in front of her. After hearing Yunjian's words, Luo Shi scratched her head and then laughed awkwardly. Huh, how long ago was that? Why bring it up? Her face. Her face. She still did not give her any face as usual. Let's go. Let's go snipe 2 more times. If you lose, you'll have to treat us. Luo Shi said as she led Yunjian away. This kind of carefree attitude was something that no one present had ever seen before. These coaches had never seen Luo Shi be so polite to anyone, so they all opened their mouths. Shen Liwei, who had just fired a shot and hit the 9th ring, was bragged about by his friend as if he had become a world champion. He smiled awkwardly. Then Shen Liwei and his friend heard the coach standing next to them mutter to himself and sigh. The person in charge of our shooting range, Luo Shi, has never been so polite to anyone before. Who exactly is that little girl? It was already evening when they returned from Luo Shi's private outdoor shooting range. After 30 rounds of sniper rifle shooting, Luo Shi's score was 0-30 compared to Yunjian's. Luo Shi had been thrown into a cesspool by Yunjian and had lost all her face. The reason why she had become friends with Yunjian was because of Yunjian's amazing marksmanship. She, Luo Shi, was someone who had once broken a world record. In the hands of Yunjian, it was like an elephant playing with a turtle. There was no comparison at all. It was also because Luo Shi respected the strong that she had turned hostility into friendship and turned her enemy into a friend. The restaurant of the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei was dazzling and very luxurious. Usually, when it was time to eat, there would be a professional international chef cooking here. As long as they stayed in the hotel, they could eat and drink for free for a day. Yunjian stepped into the restaurant alone. After receiving the notice, the people from the hunting school would stay in the restaurant after dinner for people from different countries to get to know each other. Before dinner, they would eat separately. So Yunjian came for dinner. Not long after she stepped into the endless restaurant building, a surprised voice came from behind. It's you. Yunjian turned her head and saw a group of 6 or 7 young men and girls led by Shen Liwei walking over. The one who spoke was Shen Liwei. The moment Shen Liwei saw Yunjian, he was ecstatic. He strode forward and stood in front of Yunjian as if they were familiar with each other. He stretched out his hand to Yunjian. Chapter 1855. Shen Liwei was the child of a rich family, which meant that he was a young master. He usually liked to show off in front of the girls. The young masters of rich families usually placed a lot of importance on their own face. For rich people like them, face was the most important thing. And Yunjian's strength made Shen Liwei and the others worship her. The reason why Shen Liwei ran over to stop Yunjian was because of Yunjian's amazing strength. No one wanted to make friends with the weak and join forces with the strong. As long as someone was at a higher level, they would rarely take the initiative to make friends with people who were much lower than them. But if they met someone who was at a higher level than them, they would be like Shen Liwei towards Yunjian. They would be submissive, afraid that they would say something that would make the other party unhappy. At this moment, Shen Liwei was confident that Yunjian would be willing to get to know him. However, Yunjian, who was standing in front of Shen Liwei, only glanced at him slightly. Seeing Yunjian glance at him, Shen Liwei realized that Yunjian didn't seem to like shaking hands with people. So Shen Liwei quickly withdrew his hand and looked at Yunjian with a smile. In front of his friends and girls, he said to Yunjian, My name is Shen Liwei, I'm from Z country, we're from the same country. Cough, this. And they're my friends. As Shen Liwei spoke, he began to stutter. Later on, he was stared at by Yun Jian for a long time, and his face actually turned red. It wasn't because Shen Liwei had a good impression of Yun Jian that he blushed. It was because Yun Jian's strength just now made Shen Liwei have the impulse to treat Yun Jian as his idol. In front of his idol, Shen Liwei began to stutter. Although Shen Liwei usually liked to show off in front of his friends, this was all forced out. Especially for someone like Shen Liwei, who was the richest in front of his friends, he had to learn some powerful skills to show off. When Shen Liwei was holding a real gun and shooting, he was actually panicking and didn't know how to move. But the friends around him were all shouting for him to hit the 10 points, which made Shen Liwei even more flustered. When he hit the 9th ring, Liwei Shen heaved a sigh of relief, and then felt a little smug. This was a normal reaction for young people. For example, in school, if you were to get first place in an exam, you would probably have to look at your classmates with your nose in the air. When he saw Yun Jian just now, Shen Liwei felt as if he had seen his idol. He saw what he wanted to be like. Therefore, when he saw Yun Jian in the restaurant, Shen Liwei ran over without thinking and called out to Yun Jian. Yun Jian raised her eyes slightly to glance at Shen Liwei, then moved her feet. Just as she was about to walk towards the dining hall, a young girl in her early 20s standing beside Shen Liwei shouted at Yun Jian. "You're amazing. So can you teach us how to shoot? We will be grateful to you. If you don't want to, you can name a price. We can afford it. I'm Meng Tian." Shen Liwei wasn't the only one who thought so. The few people standing beside him also thought so. Yun Jian was so powerful. If they could get Yun Jian to teach them her skills, wouldn't they become super powerful people when they returned? Shen Liwei and Meng Tian trembled with excitement just thinking about this. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Before Yun Jian could say anything, a burst of laughter sounded again. After the laughter fell, the owner of the laughter appeared. "You bunch of brats still want to be her disciple? Don't even think about it. She has never accepted a disciple before." The owner of the laughter was Luo Shi. Luo Shi strolled over from not far away and happened to hear the conversation between Shen Liwei and Meng Tian, so she couldn't help but speak up. Seeing that it was Luo Shi, Shen Liwei, Meng Tian, and the others were slightly stunned and took 2 steps back. Seeing this, Luo Shi didn't feel that there was anything wrong. She glanced at Yun Jian, who had her hands in her pockets lazily, and continued to speak to Shen Liwei and Meng Tian. "Not to mention you guys, even I was rejected when I wanted to be her disciple." Speaking up to this point, Luo Shi first clutched her chest and showed a sad expression. After a while, Luo Shi turned her head to look at Meng Tian and said to her, "Little girl, no matter how rich your family is, it's impossible to be her disciple. Do you know how many people begged to be her disciple? Not to mention the international big shots fighting to be her disciple." Chapter 1856. As soon as Luo Shi said that, Meng Tian, the girl who had asked Yun Jian to name a price to learn Yun Jian's skills, was dumbfounded. "You're saying someone converted $5 billion into cash and hired nearly 100 trucks to load the cash onto them and send it to her to be her disciple?" Luo Shi's words made Shen Liwei's jaw drop. Disbelief was written all over his face, but Shen Liwei still blurted out the seemingly impossible words with a shudder. Meng Tian was stunned as well. She had just asked Yun Jian to name a price. Her family did not have that much money. That's right. The scene back then was sensational. I've never seen such a sensational scene in my life. The money was like a drizzle falling from the sky. As long as she agreed, it was all hers. In the end, the person loaded the money onto nearly 100 trucks and sent it to her personally, scaring the neighbors. All she had to do was say, "How little, how embarrassing." Throw it out, and all the money was sent back. Luo Shi clicked her tongue as she recalled hearing Yun Jian reject someone who had offered $5 billion to be her disciple. These words caused Shen Li and Meng Tian to be stunned. The expressions on their faces changed from their mouths to their mouths wide open, then closing them again. They were so shocked that their eyes were wide open, like fish spitting bubbles in the water. That's why, if she takes anyone as her disciple in this lifetime, I'll immediately acknowledge that disciple as my master. I'll treat her like an ancestor and serve her. I'll have no complaints. If you spout nonsense, I, Luo Shi, will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Luo Shi was certain that Yun Jian would never take in a disciple in this lifetime. There were so many good seedlings in the world, but Yun Jian did not even spare them a glance. She did not even bat an eye when someone sent nearly 100 trucks worth of cash to Yun Jian. She would take in a disciple? Bullsh *t. Even if the sky fell, it would not be possible. Country Z, Zhe Province's Longmen City welcomes you. Since Luo Shi had boasted so much, Yun Jian would feel embarrassed if she didn't say anything. Just as Luo Shi was talking with relish, Yun Jian's voice came faintly, which made Luo Shi suddenly stunned. What do you mean by that? Luo Shi suddenly had a bad feeling. This kind of premonition was called not being able to keep the words that came out of one's mouth. One had to pay the price for one's words. My disciple, Zhang Xiaofeng, from Zhe Province's Longmen City, a student of Longmen City No. 1 High School. He's also the ancestor you're supposed to serve. Yun Jian's words suddenly rang out. Her tone was flat, but it stirred up the emotions of Luo Shi and everyone present. Yun Jian had already accepted a disciple? Although Shen Li Wei and Meng Tian were surprised, they were not as shocked as Luo Shi, who had just made some kind of oath. Luo Shi knew that it was even more inconceivable for Yun Jian to accept a disciple than for a person to eat *t for food. But this Yun Jian, she actually... Did he take in a disciple? Are you kidding me? You've really accepted a disciple? Luo Shi turned her gaze to Yun Jian in disbelief. Yun Jian nodded and smirked, turning to Luo Shi and joking, your ancestor is in country Z's Zhe Province's Longmen City. Don't forget. With that, Yun Jian stepped into the restaurant. Her long legs and the view of her back with the golden ratio made the people who stood where they were gasp. This doesn't make sense. This. Luo Shi shook her head and ran into the restaurant with Yun Jian in disbelief. Shen Li Wei, Meng Tian, and the rest who were left behind gulped and followed them into the restaurant. Inside the restaurant. The restaurant was a buffet, so one could take as much as one wanted. Yun Jian took 7 to 8 plates of dishes and placed them in front of her. She sat down leisurely and tasted them slowly. You're eating so much. Luo Shi took a few dishes and sat opposite Yun Jian. Looking at the plates in front of Yun Jian and the ones in front of her, she could not help grumbling. Chapter 1857. Luo Shi pursed her lips at her words. Although Luo Shi looked young and was only in her 20s, she was already 30 years old. She was already past the point of puberty. Luo Shi was at the age where she would gain weight easily, so she had to maintain her slim figure. Yun Jian took 7 to 8 plates, each one filled to the brim. Luo Shi was envious of how she ate without restraint. She would not gain weight no matter how much she ate. Yun Jian ate so much and she had a reason to say that she was still growing. Luo Shi pursed her lips and buried her head in her food. Right, what are you doing in Dubai this time? For fun. Coming to Brunei's 6-star Empire Hotel was indeed for fun. Yun Jian smirked faintly. Alright, I won't ask you. I won't get anything out of you even if I did, Luo Shi said with a twitch of her lips. Don't forget that your ancestor is in Longmen City, Yun Jian reminded Luo Shi as she finished 3 to 4 plates of food in no time. Luo Shi was speechless. I'm sorry, I won't spout nonsense anymore. Anhun Group's headquarters. After Yun Jian left last time, everything in Anhun Group returned to normal. Lin Wei was still training assassins in Anhun Group's assassin training camp. Shuang was bullying Si Luo more and more now. One day, he even pinned Si Luo to the foot of the bed and nibbled on her for half an hour, saying that he was helping her avoid scumbags in the future. Si Luo was still young and did not know what this meant. She was bullied by Shuang for half a year. Other than being a little afraid of the scar on Shuang's neck, Si Luo did not mind Shuang touching her. Si Luo was naive and did not even know what it meant for a man to kiss her. Si Luo had been in an Hun group for quite some time. Luo Mei had just been abducted by Mo's son and was unfamiliar with the place. Now that Yun Jian had left, she did not even dare to step out of the house. The men and women in an Hun group were all ferocious. Once, Luo Mei was surrounded by them when she went out for a stroll. They almost raped her, but Mo's son arrived in time. The group was shot dead by Mo's son on the spot. Luo Berry was so scared that her face turned green. After that, she didn't dare to go out. Somehow, Luo Berry got to know Si Luo. After the two of them got to know each other, they kept in touch every day. Rockberry did not live with Mawson. Mawson was very gentlemanly in this regard. He arranged an independent residence for her, but secretly protected her. On the other hand, Si Luo was tied up by Shuang. After the two of them got to know each other, they quickly became good friends. Every time, Si Luo would go and look for Luo Berry. In the end, Si Luo decided not to go back and slept with Luo Berry. The two of them were extremely intimate. Shuang was so angry that he resisted the urge to look for Si Luo. That day, Si Luo went to play with Lockberry again. As they chatted, Si Luo mentioned how Shuang used his lips to kiss her lips every time they met. Sometimes, he even touched her body. Si Luo was as innocent as a child, and because no one had told her about this since she was young, she had no idea what Shuang was trying to do. However, Luo Mei's expression changed after hearing Si Luo's words. What? He actually treated you like that? You're a girl. If other people find out about this, how are you going to get married? Luo Mei's words made Si Luo's innocent heart skip a beat. Huh? Then what should I do? Sister Luo Mei, can I sleep with you from now on? Si Luo panicked and stared at Luo Mei. Of course you can. I never thought that there would be such a shameless man in this world. You can sleep with me from now on. Luo Mei held Si Luo's hand and comforted him. Chapter 1858. Once he reached Mo's son, Shuang went straight to the point. The woman you brought back kidnapped my woman. What's going on? Mo's son glanced at Shuang. At that moment, Luo Berry was comforting Si Luo. Si Luo said that Shuang wanted to do intimate things with her every day, so Luo Berry understood that Shuang was forcing Si Luo to do intimate things. It was Luo Berry's first time hearing about this. She blushed at the mention of it, but she still told Si Luo what she knew. Did you guys use any protection? What protection? Si Luo had no idea that Luo Berry had misunderstood that Shuang was already having sex with her, so she asked in a silly manner. Of course not. That's too much. What if you get pregnant? Luo Berry said angrily. What's pregnant? Si Luo asked innocently. It means that you have a baby in your stomach. Luo Berry explained. Huh? Then, what should I do? Si Luo's face turned green. 30 minutes later, Shuang brought Mo's son to Luo Berry's place. What he saw was his wife crying on Luo Berry's body. Si Luo's eyes were red and swollen when he looked up at Shuang. It was obvious that he had been crying for a while. Most importantly, Si Luo shrunk back in fear when he saw Lu Sheng. Si Luo was no longer afraid of him, but he shrunk back again. Shuang almost vomited blood when he saw this. He walked over and grabbed Si Luo's hand, dragging him out. Don't touch me. I don't want a baby. Si Luo shrunk back into Luo Berry's body. Shuang was speechless. Although he had bad intentions, he hadn't done it to her yet. How could he have a baby? Yun Jian didn't know what happened in an Hun organization. At that moment, Yun Jian had already finished 7 to 8 plates of food on her table. Are you pregnant? Eating so much. Yun Jian picked up a glass of water from the table. Just as she swallowed the water, Luo Shi suddenly teased her. After hearing this, Yun Jian spat out the water in her mouth. Fortunately, the food on the table had been swept clean, and the water did not splash on Luo Shi, but Luo Shi was still shocked. Yun Jian took out a tissue and wiped her mouth as if nothing had happened, but her face was slightly red. When he did it with her, he really didn't use any protection. Don't tell me I really got it? He only had sex with her a few hundred times. Cough, cough. After dinner, Luo Shi had something to do and left first. Yun Jian stood in the dining room and didn't leave. Shen Liwei and the others saw her and walked over. Shen Liwei and the others had just walked over when they saw a group of people entering the restaurant. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes when the group of people entered. The man in the lead only had one eye, and the other was a bloody mess. It looked like he had been blinded by a knife. It had been many years, but it still looked terrifying. This person could be recognized by his appearance. He was the person in charge of the hunting school, Jamil. When Jamil appeared, the surroundings quickly quieted down. Without a doubt, the people behind Jamil were all talents from various countries who were about to head to the hunting school. Elites. That's the person in charge of the hunting school, Jamil. A man standing beside Shen Liwei quickly recognized Jamil and exclaimed. Seeing this, Shen Liwei and Meng Tian looked over in fear and curiosity. Aren't you curious? Should we stand in front and take a look? I heard that those people are the most powerful elites from various countries in the world. They're all important people who are going to the hunting school. Shen Liwei stood beside Yun Jian and explained the situation to Yun Jian. How can a little girl understand if you explain it to her like that? It's enough for us men to talk to men. As for women, they can just stay at home and be good wives and mothers. They have nothing to do with it. Look at the elites who are about to head to the hunting school. Are there any women? That's why I said that women are useless. How can there be any women among the elites of various countries? That's impossible. Shen Liwei had just excitedly introduced to Yun Jian when a middle-aged man standing beside Shen Liwei and the others said to Shen Liwei in a disdainful voice. These words were not only directed at Yun Jian, but also Yun Jian. The middle-aged man had just finished speaking to Shen Liwei and then turned his head to look at the group of people led by Jamil. He saw that the petite figure that he had looked down on earlier was walking towards Jamil in front of the middle-aged man, Shen Liwei, and the others, as well as everyone else present. Chapter 1859. Jamil also had a military position in Venezuela. The hunting school was not an invisible school, but a school that trained the best students carefully selected from various countries. But the biggest difference between the hunting school and the general military school was that the hunting school was known as the world-famous devil training. And entering the hunting school required signing a life and death agreement, because the death rate in the hunting school was extremely high. Any accidental casualties would be borne by their own country or the person. The hunting school was also a military school, so there was nothing wrong with Yun Jian using the military way to ask to join the team. Return to the team immediately. Jamil just glanced at Yun Jian, a little surprised that there was a girl in this year's hunting school. But Jamil did not pay much attention to Yun Jian. Although Yun Jian was beautiful, in Jamil's eyes, strength was the absolute truth. Without the support of strength, no matter how beautiful she was, Jamil would not think that she was powerful. Yun Jian stood with the group beside Jamil under everyone's gaze. Yun Jian, you just arrived? Chen Yang and Ding Jianlin, who had already joined the team, looked at Yun Jian and asked. Yun Jian replied, I was eating in the restaurant just now. Then there was no sound. However, Shen Liwei, Meng Tian, the middle-aged man who had rudely said that women were useless, and everyone in the restaurant, who had been watching the situation from afar, were all stunned. Yun Jian was a little girl from Z country, and Qin Yang and Ding Jianlin were no doubt special forces from Z country. Since the two of them had greeted Yun Jian, then Yun Jian must have come from Z country to participate in the hunting school training with the two of them. Shen Liwei and Meng Tian stared with wide eyes, their faces full of shock. No wonder. Yun Jian's marksmanship was so good before. So she was an elite going to the hunting school. They had just said in front of Yun Jian that the elites who could go to the hunting school were so powerful. Now thinking about it, Shen Liwei blushed and felt embarrassed. After everyone had arrived, the group of people standing around to watch the show immediately realized that among the elites from various countries, there were few young people in their 20s, many in their 30s, and not many in their 40s. But coming and going, all of them were men. Yun Jian was the only teenager who was a young girl. Looking from afar, Yun Jian's beautiful and slender figure was especially outstanding. Although she was not as tall as these men, her figure was the perfect golden ratio, and her fair and beautiful face was especially outstanding. In terms of gender and age, Yun Jian was even more outstanding. At this moment, Jamil spoke to Yun Jian and the others. Before coming here, you should know the rules of our hunting school. You must sign a life and death waiver. In other words, if you die from exhaustion or have an accident in our school due to your physical condition, then our hunting school will not be responsible for all the responsibilities. And therefore, you still have the chance to choose. Stay or leave. Jamil's words spread throughout the venue. Shen Liwei, Meng Tian, and the others in the distance could not help but tremble when they heard it. The hunting school's life and death waiver was not a secret, but a public announcement. Everyone knew, but knowing was one thing. It was the first time a student like Shen Liwei had seen such a scene. It was the first time he had heard of a life and death waiver in such a serious manner. Since we're here, we won't back down. Someone immediately spoke up. Following that, there were a series of high-spirited responses. Seeing this, Jamil nodded in satisfaction. Then, he paused and turned his head to Yun Jian. Jamil said to Yun Jian solemnly, "In our hunting school, there is no difference between men and women. There is no age difference, so we will not show mercy to you. You have to think carefully." It was not that Jamil despised Yun Jian, he was just reminding her out of kindness. As soon as these words were said, everyone's gaze fell on Yun Jian. A female student had entered the hunting school. This was something that had never happened in the past few years, and the other party was an underage girl. Naturally, the focus was higher than ordinary people. At this moment, Yun Jian raised her head and looked into Jamil's eyes in front of everyone. She pursed her red lips and suddenly curled up. She said something that shocked Jamil. "Your hunting school can train me 10 or 100 times more than ordinary special forces soldiers." Chapter 1860. The hunting school's devilish training was world famous. Not to mention a nobody like Yun Jian, even elites from various countries might not be able to come out alive after entering. Or rather, it was unknown whether they could complete all the assessments and graduate with honor in this short 1 year. She, Yun Jian, actually had the courage to let Jamil train her 10 times or 100 times the training of ordinary special forces. Was she looking for death? "Little girl, don't you know what kind of place the hunting school is?" Standing not far from Yun Jian, a fat and strong foreign man with strong abdominal muscles raised his hand said to Yun Jian in English contemptuously. Most of the people present could speak English, and they all communicated in English. As soon as the foreign man finished his words, some people immediately pointed at Yun Jian and whispered, "Nonsense. This girl is overestimating herself. She really thinks she's weak. Haven't Z people always been so arrogant? Ha ha ha." As the conversation went on, the foreigners even dragged the Z people into it. Hearing this, Yun Jian's eyes flashed. Qin Yang and Ding Jianlin both clenched their fists tightly. "Shut up, all of you. Hearing this, Jamil's eyes flashed as he spoke sharply. After that, the surroundings immediately quieted down. Entering the hunting school, there is no distinction of nationality, gender, age, and origin. In the hunting school, your past achievements are not allowed to be mentioned. After entering the hunting school, the school will give you a number, and this random number will be your name. In the hunting school, it is forbidden to call each other's names directly, and it is not allowed to mock anyone like just now. Violators will be expelled from the hunting school. Jamil's words resounded word by word, so that everyone present could hear it clearly. Everyone had to change from their casual attitude to solemn. Okay, let's disperse first. Pack and prepare your things and fighting spirit. 3 days later, gather at the entrance of the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei and get ready to set off. The next year, it depends on whether you can survive. I hope that after a year, everyone can come out of the hunting school alive. Jamil added in a serious tone. However, everyone present knew that this was impossible. The death rate of the hunting school was right there. No matter how powerful the hunting school was, there would always be sacrifices. As for the path of the strong, if there were no sacrifices, how could it be paved into a wide road for the victors? And Hun's headquarters. Just as Shuang was about to drag Si Luo away, Si Luo suddenly said, "Don't touch me, sob sob, I don't want to have a baby, sob sob sob." This made Shuang, who had always been against Si Luo and Luo Berry playing together every day and even sleeping together, speechless. When had he ever done anything to her that would make her pregnant? This is a lawful society. Even if this isn't country Z, you can't treat Si Luo like this. She's very pitiful, just like a child. Don't bully her just because she doesn't know anything. You're committing a crime. At this moment, Luo Berry's words suddenly rang out. Luo Berry's words were directed at Shuang. To put it bluntly, Luo Berry thought that Shuang had bullied Si Luo, so Luo Berry wanted to stand up for Si Luo. Committing a crime? Shuang grabbed Si Luo's hand and pulled Si Luo into his arms. He glanced sideways at Luo Berry and revealed a cold smile, as if he had heard the funniest joke in his life. Shuang turned his head and looked at Luo Berry ferociously. "I've bullied many people before. Do you want to try?" Shuang was talking about bullying this time, but it was different from bullying Si Luo. At this moment, Shuang was glaring at Luo Berry fiercely as he roared. Luo Berry was shocked by his roar. Shuang! At this moment, Mo Sen stood in front of Luo Berry and exchanged glances with Shuang. His expression was no less ferocious than Shuaying's as he roared as well. Shuang took a look and was slightly taken aback. Then, he turned around and dragged Si Luo away. Si Luo, she. Luo Berry couldn't help but speak when she saw that Shuang still took Si Luo away. Luo Berry had just spoken when Mo Sen suddenly grabbed her hand. Mo Sen, who had never looked into Shuaying's eyes before, pulled her into his embrace and moaned softly. Chapter 1861. Being hugged by Mo Sen suddenly, Luo Berry trembled slightly. She awkwardly placed her hands in front of her chest. She did not know whether to put them down or hug Mo Sen back. To be honest, Mo Sen gave her the impression that he was calm and steady. It was as if he would always handle things calmly and steadily. But just now, for her, he actually shouted back at Snow Eagle in such a loud voice. "Did I say something wrong?" Luo Berry lowered her head awkwardly and pursed her red lips. Then, she wanted to push Mo Sen away gently. As she pushed, Luo Berry whispered, "I'm sorry." Luo Berry wanted to push Mo Sen away, but unexpectedly, Mo Sen suddenly hugged her tightly in his arms and hugged her even tighter. "You don't have to apologize to your own people," Mo Sen suddenly said. "Own people?" Mo Sen also said, "Don't meddle in other people's affairs." When these two sentences were put together, it was easy to misunderstand. Could it be that in his heart, she was already one of his own people? Luo Berry shook her head and blushed slightly. She was a little shy. Luo Berry suddenly raised her head. She was about to speak, but unexpectedly, the moment she raised her head, Emosen was looking down. The height difference between Luo Berry and Emosen was not very big, although Luo Berry was much shorter than Emo. Senator Luo Berry's height could reach Emosen's ears by a little. When she raised her head, Luo Berry actually had something to say to Emo's senator unexpectedly. The moment she raised her head, Luo Berry's eyes suddenly met Emosen's face, who was looking down at her. All of a sudden, she felt an ice-cold sensation on her lips, as well as the touch of soft lips. In the next breath, Luo Berry's eyes widened. She looked at Emosen's face that was magnified countless times in front of her eyes in shock. The moment she raised her head, Emosen happened to be looking down. In the unseen world, it was as if there was a red line that was pulling both of them. Luo Berry raised her head. She did not tiptoe and Emosen did not bend over. However, Emosen lowered his head to look at her. At this moment, Luo Berry suddenly raised her head. She could not stop in time. Her lips and Emosen's thin lips were pressed together. Just like that, the first kiss of their lives was gone in a blur. Blood Doll Organization. At this moment, Di Lin was holding Leng Mei down, continuing the 10 days and 10 nights he had promised last time. He was working towards 100 days and 100 nights. Ah. Leader, my waist, I can't take it anymore, I'm so thirsty. Ah. I want to go to the kitchen and get a glass of water. Is that okay? Leng Mei was being pressed onto the floor by Di Lin. Leng Mei held Di Lin with both hands and wanted to move towards the bed. After a while, Leng Mei leaned against the side of the bed and was pinned down by Di Lin. Hearing Leng Mei's words, Di Lin was even more annoyed. Go to the kitchen and get a glass of water? And then left me? This caused Leng Mei to scream continuously. An hour later, Leng Mei lay on Di Lin's chest. She pouted, thinking about how to escape from Di Lin. Although her Di Lin had confessed to her, this made Leng Mei very happy. But after being captured these few days, she was pressed onto the bed by Di Lin every day to do naughty things. Her waist was about to break. I miss playing mahjong with Qin Yu and Gu Nianji. She won every round and could make Qin Yu and Gu Nianji wash her clothes every time. What are you thinking about? Di Lin asked when he saw Leng Mei spacing out. Leng Mei looked afar, not realizing that her leader was asking her something. She opened her red lips and blurted out the words in her heart. Chapter 1862. Leng Mei's words were blurted out without any consideration at all. To be honest, at this moment, Leng Mei did not even consider who was lying beside her. Her divine sense had already flown off to God knows where. Di Lin was speechless. Did she just call him a beast? The pitiful thing was that Leng Mei didn't realize that Di Lin had already heard her inner monologue. Leng Mei's mind was still somewhere else. Her thoughts had already flown off somewhere. Mahjong or chief, which one should I choose? Di Lin held back his anger and asked Leng Mei, who was in a daze and would spit out whatever was on her mind. If she dared to choose mahjong, he would let her try. He would make sure that she would die of exhaustion in bed. Of course it's mahjong. Mahjong is so fun. With chief, it's either that or that. I'm exhausted. Leng Mei said loudly without thinking. As soon as he finished speaking, Leng Mei suddenly reacted. She seemed to be lying on top of a warm body. Turning around, Leng Mei suddenly met Di Lin's handsome face. Leng Mei seemed to be shocked. She suddenly looked at Di Lin in a daze and wanted to stand up. Chief, I'm not leaving you. I just want to play mahjong. Di Lin suddenly grabbed Leng Mei and pinned her on the bed. A second before he kissed her, he said fiercely, don't even think about it. Endless lust and the day was still long. 6-star Empire Hotel, Brunei. There was a place in Brunei's 6-star Empire Hotel where one could admire the sunset. The sunset here was very beautiful. The endless sea, coupled with the glow of the sunset, was beautiful beyond compare. After dinner, most guests of Brunei's 6-star Empire Hotel would walk around there. Because of the beautiful scenery and the beautiful people, there were many people walking around. After dinner, Yun Jian followed the crowd here. Luo she had her own matters to attend to, so she left first. When Yun Jian arrived, she saw a few foreigners not far away. These foreigners were the ones who said that Yun Jian was overestimating herself in front of Jamil and that Z people were always so arrogant. Yun Jian's deep eyes glinted at the sight of it. Phew. So you're here to enjoy the sunset as well? We heard that the sunset at Brunei Hotel is especially beautiful, so we came here too. Shen Li and Meng Tian were not surprised to see Yun Jian again. Meng Tian also restrained her young mistemper and didn't say much. In fact, Meng Tian didn't target Yun Jian from the beginning. She only asked Yun Jian to accept her as a disciple because she was rich and could buy anything in the world. However, after the previous incidents, Meng Tian no longer spoke. What a coincidence. As the night breeze blew, it was slightly chilly by the sea. Yun Jian tucked her hair behind her ears and did not ignore Shen Liwei and the others this time, greeting them instead. Hee hee. Shen Liwei and the others laughed. Yo. My Dan, isn't this the girl from Z country? At this moment, the foreigners who said that Yun Jian was overestimating herself in front of Jamil and that Z people were always so arrogant walked towards Yun Jian. After a while, these people surrounded Yun Jian. The strong man who said that Z people were always arrogant and was called My Dan surrounded Yun Jian and looked at Yun Jian with a mocking gaze. Little girl from Z country, listen up. If you know what's good for you, you'd better leave the hunting school yourself. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that you'll be able to leave the hunting school alive. My Dan saw that there were only a few kids around, so he threatened Yun Jian. Yun Jian looked into My Dan's eyes. She smiled coldly and suddenly slapped My Dan's face. Facing Yun Jian's sudden slap, My Dan didn't have time to react. By the time these people reacted, Yun Jian was already a few meters away. Chapter 1863. My Dan, who was slapped by Yun Jian, heard Yun Jian's words. His deep pupils shrunk slightly. My Dan was not an ordinary person after all. He quickly returned to normal and glared fiercely at Yun Jian. Just then, a streak of bright red blood flowed out of My Dan's mouth. It was because Yun Jian's slap was too strong and had hit a vital part of his body. My Dan, are you all right? The few men standing beside My Dan looked at My Dan worriedly. My Dan only waved his hand lightly to show that he was fine. After all, he was someone who had seen many things. My Dan strode forward and exchanged glances with Yun Jian. Although he did not join his friends to surround Yun Jian like before, he still spoke arrogantly to Yun Jian. Little girl, you have some guts. Then let's see who's better in the hunting school. After saying that, My Dan snorted and left with his people with a sullen face. From the reactions of My Dan and his people just now, including the hunting school, which was isolated from the rest of the world and had to sign a life and death agreement before entering. Even if no one said it out loud, if one were to unfortunately die after entering the hunting school, it would be hard to say whether it was man-made or a real unfortunate death. Yun Jian, are you all right? Shen Liwei saw that My Dan had left and asked Yun Jian worriedly. Do I look like someone who's not all right? Yun Jian glanced sideways at Shen Liwei. Which country are they from? This is too brazen, this is too much. Don't tell me they're going to do something to you in the hunting school? Even a rich young lady like Meng Tian realized it. She looked at Yun Jian fearfully and said in disbelief. To Meng Tian, who had been protected by her parents since she was young, what happened just now was beyond her imagination and tolerance. Yes. Yun Jian did not beat around the bush. Huh. Then what should we do? Meng Tian looked at Yun Jian and asked hesitantly, will you die? I won't. This time, Yun Jian's reply was very straightforward. After she finished speaking, Yun Jian tilted her head slightly and gave a cold smile. She took a big step forward and tilted her body slightly to cast a sidelong glance at Meng Tian. The corners of Yun Jian's mouth curled up at just the right moment. She said coldly to Meng Tian and looked straight ahead, as if she already had a plan. That level of strength can't even be considered a threat. Those who are weaker than their opponents would never expose their killing intent in front of their opponents, allowing them to be on guard. He's not qualified. After that, Yun Jian didn't say goodbye to Meng Tian and Shen Liwei. She left the noisy seaside and walked towards a secluded path. They walked along the serene path by the sea. It was a spacious sea just now, but now it was a serene coastal path. Yun Jian enjoyed the sea breeze very much. The wind at night was chilly, but it gave people a dark and natural feeling. Whoosh! At the moment when there was no one around, Yun Jian suddenly felt danger coming towards her. She bent down reflexively and stood up straight sideways. She dodged the sudden attack of 3 knives as fast as she could. Yun Jian's eyes darkened. After she dodged the attack of the 3 knives, her eyes had already scanned the distance and saw a black-robed figure running towards the seaside where Shen Liwei and Meng Tian were. Black robe? Mysterious person. Yun Jian's pupils shrank. She chased after the black-robed figure. Hey, isn't that Yun Jian? She seems to be chasing someone. Shen Liwei and the others, who were standing in the same place just now, didn't leave. Shen Liwei and the others were slightly surprised when they saw Yun Jian chasing after a black-robed figure with a mask on his face and only a pair of eyes exposed. At this moment, Yun Jian had already somersaulted over the black-robed figure and neatly arrived in front of the black-robed figure. She kicked the black-robed figure in the abdomen and kicked him to the ground. Then she strode forward and stomped on the black-robed figure's abdomen in front of everyone. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.